What's up, party people in the house? It's the Dynasty War Games. I'm your host, Jesse Schneeman, and I'm here with my main man, as usual, Chad Mendoza. How you doing tonight, Chad?
Fantastic. I'm glad to be here. Sipping on orange juice.
Orange juice.
No alcohol in it, unfortunately.
Okay.
But yeah, at a buddy's house in Arizona, so having a good time.
On the road for work, right? Still.
Yeah, work. But I mean, it's good to be around friends.
Right on. And we are joined tonight by one of my favorite people in this space, one of the most entertaining people you can have on a podcast, one of the most entertaining people you can listen to on his podcast. We met on Dynasty Game Night. I'm joined by Herms at Herms NFL. What is up, my friend?
Man, games. That's what's up. Games is what's up. Bro, dude, Friday vibes, hanging out, drinking stuff, getting turned, playing games, talking about football. There are I cannot think of a better combination of things to be doing. I mean, this is what it's all about. Seriously, party time. Let's go.
Glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, as we say around here, it's the most fun we can have with our clothes on.
You're not wrong.
All right, so what are you drinking there, Herms?
The patented Herms Mango Rita. Yeah, Budweiser's finest accomplishment. Just
very nice, and I see you've got a Skullbuster there. That's a 16-ouncer.
Yeah, no, they're very cheap at my gas station. 25 actually.
25-ouncer.
The thing's bigger than his head.
It's a man's drink. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, man. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, man. It's
right
Friday.
On.
I don't have to work tomorrow. What does it matter?
That's what I'm talking about. Cool. So Herms, plug yourself. Where can we find you?
Oh, that went down. Okay. A little tart. Okay, so
we're not getting Bud Light as a sponsor.
No, it tastes good. I drink it all the time, so it's an endorsement of sorts.
Right
you can follow me on Twitter at Herms NFL. Like you alluded to a little bit before, I have a podcast, The Lateral Show. Probably not publishing a new episode for the remainder of this month. But our last episode was with Joe Pisapia of Fantasy Pros, which is a good segue because nice. I too contribute work to Fantasy Pros. That's where you can find my written content, doing some other type of stuff over there. And I'm sure once the season starts, I'll get back on the news desk and do those types of alerts, keep track of injury reports for people so you can better manage your fantasy football team. Instead of reading the injury report yourself, I'll help you out. I'll do the whole thing. And then, on Twitter at Herms NFL, Fantasy Pros, and then my podcast that you mentioned. And if you like that, if you like me and then you want to hear me like yell the F word a lot like that, my podcast is a great place that you can hear that.
Right on. We're not allowed to do that here. We can yell any other word, just not that one.
If you are looking for that place, go follow Herms. Go check out his podcast.
I'm telling you, Herms, like I said, we met on Dynasty Game Night, and I thought this was an amazingly fun person. So we had to have Herms on this show. And he's been kind of like chattering at me like, hey, next time you do a game. All right, cool. Let's do a game.
Yes.
We're
doing a game. We're doing games. I love games. Games are so much fun. Dude,
That's why we do this.
And I feel so bad because like the last couple of times we tried to coordinate it, it just like it overlapped with like me attending sporting events, unfortunately. So
you had a wedding. I think you had a wedding at one point.
Yeah, just like, but hey, we're there now. So that's what's going on. It took a little bit, but we are here. We are here. Oh, dude, I'm talking too much.
You've already got some fans in the chat here. Mike Kinney's he's very happy we have somebody that's very animated with their hands. So,
So for those of you that maybe new to the podcast or don't listen to us a lot, Mike Kinney is our number one supporter in chat. This guy has been in chat for every single one of our podcasts. I think he was in on our 4-hour draft night podcast. I think he was in for 3 hours. I mean, the guy's amazing. So nice. Just shout out. And Joseph Fry, he's a DWZ member. Joining us live tonight. Thank you, friend. Oh, and Gator J's here. So Gator J is somebody that I met through Dynasty Fever podcast that I do with Brian Ford. We did a mock draft one night, and Gator J jumped in with us, and tell you what, that he's a fun dude. So, man, and Brian Ford's in chat as well. So we got a lively chat tonight.
Yeah. Yep. They're kicking it off.
All right. So Herms, you're taking over for our normal co-host, Captain Mike Casper, who is out on doing actual war games with the U.S. Army at the moment.
Oh, well, there you go.
So he's
I
a real
appreciate the
captain.
service, of course.
Yeah. So he's usually the one that gets a little more animated. So you're kind of taking that. You're kind of taking over that role.
I mean,
So-
you found a logical replacement for that role. I mean, in a world with like, if you're ever in need of just like an aggressively animated loud person that just like waves their limbs around, just hit up Herms.
Yeah, I think of you as an animaniac.
Hey,
I mean, I've known him for a whole like 5 minutes now, and I've already got the whole persona down. I like
Yeah.
it's fun. It's a good time.
All right, gentlemen. So I, without further ado, am drinking. Well, I've got a little collection. I'm a little stuck on this Corona hard seltzer watermelon lime. That's pretty good flavor. So I've got a couple of those. I've got some Corona citrus lime, and I've also got a couple of Vizzies, blueberry pomegranate, and pineapple mango.
There's too
Anybody
much
that
fruit.
knows me knows I like the girly.
There's too
drink.
much fruit going on in your alcoholic beverage life.
Yeah, but I love it.
Oh man, I can't do it. I can't do it. Yeah, maybe you'll have to turn me on to some good ones, and I'll have to try a few. But
Yeah, honestly, the craze has sort of died down, and the good ones that I liked have sort of not been around. So I'm just doing what I can here. Anyway, let's play some games,
yes.
gentlemen.
let's do it.
All right. So the first game that we have for tonight, we have 3 games. The first one is called 2 Truths and 1 Lie. All right. So I am going to give you a player. I'm going to give you 2 truths about that player and 1 lie from that player.
Okay.
All right. So once I'm done reading all 3 of these clues, the first person to buzz in. Each person has their own buzzer. Herms, you want to give me your buzzer?
Yeah!
Chad, you give me your buzzer.
Mine may change as the game goes along, but we'll start with this one.
Sweet. Okay. So, So once you buzz in, you give me the lie. If you get it wrong, you get minus a point. If you get it right, you get plus a point. So the theme tonight is going to be young players that are looking for a 3rd or 4th year breakout.
All right.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
First one, Hollywood Brown. All right. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Hollywood Brown has had more than 20 touchdowns in his 3 seasons. Hollywood Brown has had multiple seasons of 120 plus targets and 60 catches. Hollywood Brown has never been a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy. Chad.
I'm gonna go. You said more than one season of 120 receptions.
Has had multiple seasons of 120 plus targets and 60 catches.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the last one. I'm gonna go with the top 20.
Has never been a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think-
your answer.
Yep.
Wrong. Incorrect. -1 for Chad. Anyone else going to buzz in?
Yeah, that was
All right, Herbs. What do you
Okay.
got?
I'm not buying the 120 target 60 catch thing.
That is correct,
Yeah, all right, check it out. Come bringing home the gold. All right.
but not by much. It was a 59 catch season. So it was not by much. That was a tough one.
When was
That
he?
was a
When
really
was
tough
he? Top 20.
He has never
This year?
been a top 20 wide receiver.
Oh, I thought. Never mind. Okay,
Oh, so you picked an answer that you didn't even understand.
I created my own thing. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
good
no.
job.
Oh no.
I just thought that was kind of eye-opening. So one of the things we do here, Herms, is after we play a game or after we go through a round of a game, we talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because the whole point is to educate and to learn, right? So we want to learn from you. And I just thought that it was pretty eye-opening that Hollywood Brown, you can probably, you probably get a first for him. You probably get a 2023 first for him, and he's never been a top 20 wide receiver. Is that surprising to either one of you guys?
No, I knew he was never a top 20. I think he was relatively close this past year, but I know he was a wide receiver too, but I think it was on the back end of that.
Yeah, it was close.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. New place, people really liked him as a prospect, and people really liked that first year and saw some promise there, and they want to give him the benefit of the doubt with a maybe a more passing relevant quarterback and more passing relevant offense.
What do you think about that, Herms?
I mean, I've been on record as saying that I like the player, but the system in Baltimore is just odd for a player of his talents to kind of just be like all right, hey, we're going to lean heavy on you there, bud. Like, I mean, it never made a ton of sense to me. And then,
right.
But I will say, like, it is a little surprising that maybe not like super surprising or anything, but like, I remember like the end of the 2020 season, like it seemed just like every game he was hauling in a touchdown. It's like I had kind of figured maybe just like that alone would have like barely like bumped him in.
I mean, and he started out 21 as an elite wide receiver 1.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was going bonkers with that stuff. But like, man, I don't know. Like, I'm very excited about the prospect of him being able to return to being Kyler Murray's, number one go-to guy. Because, remember, if we go back to the college days, folks, hey, they were pretty good. Good.
I'm not a college guy. That was Oklahoma, right?
Oh, Oklahoma. Yeah, that's upset. Hey, that connection was real, bro. Like I'm saying, man. Like, and even when DeAndre Hopkins comes back after the 6-game suspension, like, I mean, I'm sure like it will create like more issues in the target distribution than I think people are taking into account now, just because it's so it's so far in the future. It's kind of just an abstract concept at this point, especially for dynasty managers. Like, we're not thinking about week 7 or whenever their bye week is. I don't know, like if it's going to be week 7, week 8, whatever. Like after the 6 games is over, basically. Like, we're not really thinking about that now, but and maybe like a 23 first or something, if you are just like really, really going for it, sure. But even then, I would feel like a little hesitant unless it's like, unless it's going to be like an absolute back end first or something. But like, he's such a curious one for me that like I'm getting rosier and rosier on for redraft. But from a dynasty perspective, it's still something I haven't wrapped my head around.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. In redraft, I'd be a little bit more likely to go in on him and maybe take a bit of a gamble and taking him earlier than maybe I would have anticipated if he didn't have the move. And especially with that suspension, I think he could have a really good beginning to the season. I mean, with the rapport that those two already have, talking about Kyler and Hollywood, and I don't know. I mean, I could also seeing it go the same way it went in Baltimore, where he sees a high number of targets. He's not very efficient with the reception side of things, but he's also fairly efficient in the yards per catch and the touchdowns.
That was kind of. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Chad.
And I was just going to say, and just having that kind of borderline wide receiver 2 kind of year, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me either. So,
and that was kind of my point when saying he had over 20. I think it's 22 touchdowns in his 3 seasons. I didn't want to put an exact number on it because then it's not the lie, sort of. You know what I mean? I felt, but like that means he's not really touchdown dependent, right? So, not being a wide receiver in any of those 3 seasons really surprised me. That it's not the touchdown dependency. Really, it's the efficiency.
Hey, anything's possible.
Right on. I like him. I also think that, thinking that he's going to be like DeAndre Hopkins' replacement as wide receiver 1 might be fool's gold, because 1, Hopkins will be back, right? And 2, even if he has lost the step, the Cardinals have shown they'll be aggressive in bringing in weapons. So if you're thinking about next year, it is dynasty. We have to think about next year and the year after. I don't think the Cardinals are just going to stand pat and say we're going to go with Rondale Moore and Hollywood Brown. No, they're going to bring somebody in. Yeah, they'll bring somebody in, whether it's through the draft or trade or free agency.
And like even worst case scenario, like if Hollywood does become the Christian Kirk in the offense, that's a hell of a thing to be. Like it. I mean, it really is. It really is. I mean, because like obviously, like I'm higher on Christian Kirk than other people are. I couldn't tell you why. I just like him. But like the talent
very
gap
different
between
players.
the two, like that's true. But I'm just like, but theoretically, like you could plug in, like Marquise Hollywood Brown has the speed to do that type of thing.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't stun me necessarily if they were like, hey, let's fiddle around with you doing some crazy downfield stuff from the slot.
They have different attributes but can do the same role. Yeah,
well, I don't think they will play the same role though, because what I saw out of Christian Kirk last year wasn't slot only. They moved him around to take advantage of teams that were playing zone. So that's what Christian Kirk is, a really good zone beater. He's not like he's nothing like Hollywood Brown. Actually, Hollywood Brown is a sharp cutter route runner that creates separation. Right. And I don't think he has that NFL intelligence to beat a zone. Right. Where his cousin, Antonio Brown, could do both. Right. I don't.
He's still young.
He is young and he could develop into that player. You're right.
I mean, he's been in a pretty elementary offense as far as the passing game goes.
So that's true. He's never been asked to do that.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what he's really capable of doing in this offense.
Okay, that's a great point. Just because he's really good at separating doesn't mean he can't find a soft spot in his zone, and that's something that can be taught. Absolutely,
like the physical attributes required at minimum are there. Like it's theoretical. It's kind of an abstract point, but at the same time, like it's just an idea I had. It's right. June. I don't know.
Right? No. Right on. Like, all right. So it's not. And I just we don't like groupthink here, so we disagree with each other a lot. But he definitely could replace Kirk, as a weapon. Maybe not immediately fill like the exact specific X.
Yeah, maybe not like a 1-for-1. Yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. But could fill absolutely could fill the need for a weapon. Yeah, and absolutely you can get open downfield, obviously. All right, so before we move on to the next player, Herms, I brought this up the last podcast we were on, but over it's your right shoulder.
Yes.
I thought it might be an uncle or your father, but it's not. It's the guy from CSI, right? Or
that is
Law and Order.
That is Jerry Orbach of Broadway fame, but also Detective Lenny Briscoe on the original Law and Order.
Right. So when we were on Dynasty game night, I was like, I was looking at it the whole night, and I waited to the end of the night to ask, "Is that your dad?" Because he looks a lot like the Law and Order guy.
I was legitimately going to save it to the end of the episode, but I was so curious. I was like, it kind of looks like him, but he's so young. Like, really not.
Right on. Is it autographed?
If I move my microphone, it'll be a little more obvious. But it's a facsimile autograph. But
okay, right on.
Yeah, nice. And then beneath that's crooked. Oh no, an actually autographed photo of Keenan and Kel.
Very nice. Very nice.
So I got a fake autograph and a real autograph.
Yeah.
I have a fantasy team that I believe is going to win this year, Chad, in Fantasy Darlings, named X-Wing at Deliciousness. That's a Keenan. That's a Key and Peele.
Key and Peele, yeah. Yeah. Good
Sorry.
Show.
Shit. I just totally took that off the rails. You just said Keenan and
Kel.
I did say Keenan and
Kel. Different show, both good shows.
And I heard Key and Peele, and you said Keenan and Kel from Good.
No, but I would shout out Key and Peele though, especially because and I've been talking a lot about this recently. What Jordan Peele has moved on to do creatively has been truly fascinating, and then also season 3 already ended, so if you're a fan of the show, you've probably seen it, but just in case, no spoilers for Atlanta. I'm starting to see Donald Glover kind of take that same path with some of his creative choices, and I'm just I'm really interested to see if that ends up happening. Going from the show. Dude, Atlanta, I swear to
really
God.
good. It's really good.
Is it? Okay.
Oh man, it's
All right,
one of
I'll
the
check
best
it out.
shows I've ever seen in my entire life.
Really?
What's the
Really?
name of the actor that's God, I forget his name in the show. I haven't seen the show in like I didn't see the last season yet. He was also in that movie about
The guy from the thing.
Klansman, that Klansman movie.
Lakeith Stanfield.
Yes, he's awesome. He's
He's excellent. He's the guy. He was also in Black Panther, right?
Was he?
Is
I
that
don't
who
know.
you're talking about? The lead in
I don't think
Black
so.
Klansman?
No,
Was
but
he in? I don't remember him in Black Panther though.
I don't think he was. But he was also in Sorry to Bother You. Like that was another one that he
Yeah,
did that was like super good.
All right. So speaking of, have you guys seen We Own This City yet?
I have I have
Wow.
no idea how it like I just completely avoided hearing about it considering, the whole thing. But
Yeah.
like
Right.
it's
I mean, I live in Baltimore County, so it's
Yeah,
it's big for me.
yeah, like dude, I mean like once I found out what it was and like who was like behind the project, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, it's David Simon.
Yeah, like
I mean-
I have to see this.
It's all it's 90% of the actors are from The Wire.
Yeah.
Chad,
like,
do you know it? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Do you
That's
know
with
of
John Bernthal, right?
Yes. John
Yeah.
Bernthal. I mean, I watched him on Walking Dead, and I think I've seen him in a couple other things. Didn't love him going in. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Herms, this dude does the best Balmer accent I have ever heard from someone that's not a native.
Yeah.
Right? Because in the original Wire, they had a couple people that were from Balmer, and no,
Absolutely.
you're in a county, hon. Right?
Yeah.
This dude is, I mean, he nails it. He does such a great job, man. And it's all a true story, and it's just amazing. It's all done in the David Simon style. It's so good. You have to.
Dude, like it's been so like as far as like channel or streaming service or whatever, where is that able to be? Is this an HBO?
It's HBO
Okay.
Max.
All right, so I got that.
Pay
through
the
my cable
$15,
package, so-
dude. Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. One hundo, dude. I'm definitely gonna check. Well, plus
Yeah.
anything, Maryland-based content
Right.
is the best content.
Right
I'm
on,
just
right
saying,
on.
like that's what it's all about.
Where are you from originally?
I am from out a little bit more closer to West Virginia. Like,
Frederick?
I'm out in Western Maryland. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, right on. Yeah, I'm from the county, hon.
Oh, there you go. Hey.
I ain't from here, but I live here.
There you go. Well, it's a beautiful
All right.
place to be, and look at that flag, folks. Look at that flag.
Look at that flag.
It is one of the nicer flags.
bunch of weirdo cult members with the flag, man. I'll tell you what. No other state in the union cares about their flag as much as Maryland.
I would beg to differ.
Well, I'm sorry, Texas. You're right.
Colorado goes pretty
it was
hard with their flag too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not even
California
a good.
does surprisingly
Colorado's
well.
not even a good flag. It's like a C with some stripes. It's not even.
I think it's pretty cool how they integrate it into designs
Okay.
for
I mean,
other
Texas-
stuff, but like
Texas
California.
that was the flag of the Republic of Texas. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. They were a country. That makes a difference.
California with the bear. That flag's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
true.
I mean, I like South Carolina's with the crescent moon and the.
oh yeah, that is actually a pretty nice.
I don't know
flag.
how we got to talking about state flags. but-
because it's huge right behind them. But there is a cult of the Maryland flag. I'm telling you, these people are.
I have it tattooed on my chest. I am
Wow.
those people. I
See?
mean,
Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's move on. So
Football.
Herms is up 1 point to -1 point, and the next player is Miles Sanders.
Ugh, yuck.
here we go.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So Miles Sanders, I mean, some people think that he is still capable of a breakout this year.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Wait,
one of
we're just so I get this straight. We're picking the lie, right?
them. You're picking the lie.
Okay, cool.
Miles Sanders has been an RB1 in PPR once in his 3 seasons. Miles Sanders has been at least an RB2 twice in 3 seasons. Miles Sanders has had more than 10 touchdowns in his career.
That's my buzzer.
Was it? Okay. It just sounded like a big sigh.
Picking the lie. I want to go with the first one. I'm gonna go with the touchdowns though. I don't think he's had more than 10.
Sweet. Incorrect.
What?
Yeah, it's just so everybody knows I'm always rooting against Chad. All right, so that is incorrect. Herms.
The second one you said does not sound true. Because I think didn't he sneak in to do an RB1 thing once? I really think it's the RB2.
No, I think he was just outside of RB1.
No, sir.
I knew that, but I was like, there's no way he's had more than 10 touchdowns.
No, sir. Miles Sanders has never been an RB1 in PPR or otherwise. Has been an RB2 twice in his 3 seasons and has 12 career touchdowns.
I think he was like RB like 15 or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know how I convinced myself that I was right about that.
It was right out. It was right outside of RB1, but it was not an RB1. So
darn.
Yeah.
It was his first. It was his first season. That's why he got so much hype. I remember it because I remember buying a couple of Miles Sanders shares and being like, oh, he's his first year right outside the RB1 bracket. And yeah, that's worked out great.
I was so hyped after that season, dude. I was just like losing my mind, hooting and hollering, just all of 2020 in the summer, just like this guy. And then just nope, just ever since then, just
yeah, I had my fair share of Miles Sanders after that season. But you know what? I realized it quickly in his next season and sold him off. I sold him off everywhere I could. Actually, a couple of shares, one in particular, not till the end after this season, traded him for Zeke, and then traded Zeke for 106 and got Jameson Williams. That's how you do it, folks. I mean, you know, that's fantasy darlings, Chad. Just so you know.
It's a good way to turn some pieces over and end up with something real good by the end of it. I mean, that's what it's all about in Dynasty, man.
But let's talk about Miles Sanders a little bit, right? So those 12 touchdowns that he has, that includes 0 from last year.
Yeah,
right.
That's why I found it so hard to believe he had more than 10 because he didn't have anything this last year. So
that's why I threw that in there. I thought it might be a little red herring.
Yeah, that's surprising to me.
Yeah. Wow. So, I'm getting the trade offers in the chat. All right. So here's my thought about Miles Sanders. I don't believe that. I mean, he's got truly, how do I put this? Like, what's the opposite of an elite trait?
A
deficit. He's got a talent deficit in vision.
Yeah.
You know, he just doesn't see the holes. He's missed so many big runs because of it, and he can't stay healthy. But he runs behind an elite run blocking offensive line, one of the best in the NFL, really. And like it's an offense that it's not going to be as dedicated to the run as last year, but they're going to run the ball.
Yeah.
So there's a really good chance that Miles Sanders has an RB1 season this year, but it is also a contract year. So where is he next year?
I mean, the issue with him, like I mean, everything you've said being, the case, 100%, but also like
elite blindness. There you go.
Hey, right.
Like, I didn't want to say it. That's I think that's a Chris Harris thing. But anyway, go on.
But like, I also do have worries about his ability to contribute enough in the passing game to be able to reach that RB1 threshold, because for him to do that, he would have to, and like, look, positive regression to the mean is coming for him in the touchdown department. It just is, but he would have to vastly outperform. Yeah, that too. But like, at least, because I mean, I primarily play in PPR leagues, like full point PPR leagues.
Right.
But even in full or half point, like you do need to have a certain amount of volume. And like year one, like we got really excited about what he was like. He contributed as a pass catcher a little bit here and there. Year two, it started to kind of like dwindle a little bit, and then even this past year, I didn't really see anything inspiring in that category either. And I think like the team's investment in like I completely understand. Like, yes, it's only a 4th-round pick, Herms. He's not really anything that special, but like you don't just draft Kenny Gainwell for nothing. Like it's clear that there's some sort of like need for them to add that extra facet to the running back room for them to be able to feel good about it. So, like, I don't know. Like, he's frustrated. But, like, if he does well enough, I would like to see him do something as part of a more robust committee elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Like, if you put him in tandem with somebody that, kind of is just willing to, I don't know. I just feel so conflicted. I don't know half the time.
Do the dirty work up the middle like Jordan Howard?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? He's already had that.
Yeah, so it's like
I just don't think that he's going to go anywhere that's going to be a better situation than he's in.
I mean, there are a handful, but to your point, not many. Like,
yeah, there's not many, but there are some. I mean, you can see maybe potentially. Did Kareem Hunt sign a new contract?
No. He's a
so Kareem Hunt leaves Cleveland. They bring in a guy like Miles Sanders behind Chubb.
That's not a bad call because
I don't hate it.
Yeah, I don't hate it either because then he's not getting the usage that's going to wear him down or cause the injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a chance that he stays healthy.
What's frustrating for me about Miles Sanders, and this is just my perception, I follow the Eagles fairly close just because they're an NFC East rival, but not, close enough to call this a fact. But it just seems like every time Miles Sanders is injured, it's one of those things where I'm watching him and I'm like, why is he leaving the field? He's injured. Like, it doesn't ever seem like anything serious. It's just a bunch of little things all the time. And that worries me because if a guy can't stay on the field for 2/3 of the season, and it's never anything super serious, like you're not seeing Saquon freak injury where he, steps on a player's foot and breaks his ankle or something stupid like that. It's
that was a freak injury last year.
Yeah, it's these weird little things where you don't even realize he's hurt, but he's coming off the field and you never see him again.
I am not the only person in the Philly conglomerate, we'll call it, to question his toughness. All right, I'm not inventing that. It's a thing.
It's unfortunate because I think he is a talented player. I think in the right with the right usage, he could be. I wouldn't call him an elite player, dynasty player, but he could be a very useful dynasty asset. I think more than or just as much as your Antonio Gibson's or that kind of tier. I don't think there's really much to differentiate between the two, and they actually might have similar careers at the end of it all with the injuries that they're both seeing. So we'll see. And the teams keep bringing in their replacements, so there's that too.
Yeah, I also have this horrible feeling that Sanders could be a washout next year. There's a lot of good backs coming into the league.
Oh man! I will tell you what. Also, just a bonus redraft fun fact, just because you kind of threw that out there. I know it's a dynasty thing, but I'm not a big 0 RB guy. But when 0 RB is most effective is when like the balance between like the outgoing of the old guard and the incoming of the new guard is like right level.
Mm-hmm.
2023 is that year. I will be talking about that a lot next year.
Interesting point.
Much.
Interesting point, because you do have some elite draft class. Well, one specific elite draft class with Dalvin and Kamara and was Zeke in that class too. Like that's an elite class.
The year before, but I mean,
they're starting to age a little bit, and then you have a really good class coming in next year. Well, at least that's how it looks now. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think Dalvin was in Saquon's year, right?
Okay, right. So, but you have a couple of elite classes that are starting to get a little older,
That tide is really just it's right there.
Yeah,
it's flat. It's very calm.
Right when we haven't really seen an elite class in a while. It's pretty crazy.
Well, we did. What was it? 2 years ago. But they all got hurt.
Is that really an elite class though?
Well, they all got. We don't know yet. They've all been hurt. Akers, Dobbins.
You see like Saquon when Saquon came out and he puts up ridiculous RB1. I mean, it's been unfortunate with the injuries, right?
Okay, but you have JT that did that.
No, but listen, he's put up truly groundbreaking season his first year. Dalvin looked like a monster his first year, right?
Yeah.
Like you're having multiple guys coming out and looking like they're two of the best running backs in the NFL, period. I mean, other than JT,
I
any
hear
of
what
these
you're
guys
saying.
can fizzle out. Swift can fizzle out. I know nobody wants to admit that, but
Absolutely. I
he
agree.
hasn't done anything to say he's going to be an elite running back yet.
Right.
We like the talent. We like what we're seeing from him, but production-wise, it hasn't been there yet. And
He's made elite plays, but he hasn't put up an elite season.
Because like I think the case for 2020 is that from like a prospect profile standpoint, it's an elite class. It just so happened that from that point on, it's been some unfortunate, careers to date for a lot of them besides Jonathan Taylor, who obviously, I mean, hey, anybody who plays Dynasty, I think you know exactly how much you have to give up if you don't have him already. Oh boy, but like, I mean, like that's.
But there's still time for that class, is what I think.
Yes, there is.
Akers and Dobbins and Swift can still become elite.
Yeah, but I think that argument gets a little dull when you're going into the third year and you're saying these are running backs. Like,
well, we're going into our third year.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
If it doesn't happen,
the third year, they've got to do it now. They've got to.
If it doesn't happen, it's not gonna.
Their value is going to drop incredibly if they don't do it this year.
Right. Absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, Akers is real. He's really.
I mean, Akers doesn't bother me as much because you can get him a little cheaper in some leagues. Like you can shop around your leagues and try to find a deal on him because I think people are worried. Swift scares the shit out of me because where you have him, I mean, he's worth a lot right now. I mean, he's going RB3, RB4 right now, consensus pretty much. And if he doesn't do it this year, I mean, you could see that drop to, somewhere in double digits. I mean, he's got to put up an RB1 season. He's got to.
He does. You're right.
And we're talking about this whole class without even mentioning the the Clyde Edwards-Helaire elephant in the room.
Oh God!
I forgot all about that one.
I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, talk about we really need to see it in the third year.
He's a guy I've been sniffing around lately, though, trying. Nobody's budging yet, but I've been sniffing around trying to get him cheap. I offered Singletary in a second and got rejected. I thought I might get him for that, though.
It's not a bad offer to send, but like I think the tricky thing about him specifically is that a lot of people still kind of seem to have their tail tucked between their knees a little bit on that one because it's just like, oh no, and like that kind of weird just cognitive sensation going on, like
if you have him, you don't want to sell cheap on him at this point.
Yeah, it's still the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And now that Ronald Jones, obviously, like your boy Rojo guy, like, but honestly, should be a help because
I think he's a huge threat. I think he's a huge threat to CH production because if you want to run the ball, Ronald Jones is your man. If you want to throw to your running backs, Ronald Jones is not your man. But I believe that they want to run the ball, and that's how they want to beat the two deep coverage that Mahomes can't beat himself. So they want to be able to hand off a guy to a guy that can get the tough yards, and that's who Ronald Jones is.
But here's the other part of that, though, and why I think it's one of those things that will ultimately work out for Clyde Edwards-Helaire is like even when I was looking at the 2020 class coming in and kind of just jotting down my notes and building, my Google Doc worth of scouting reports, quote unquote. I'm not a scout by any means, so that's why air quotes. But like what he was really good at LSU is the complete opposite of what the Chiefs have asked him to do. If they just cast him in the pass catching role, being able to go out and do that, like that would be phenomenal. And like, yes, it does rob him of touchdown opportunity, which is, something that, like I understand it from that perspective. But if he is able to work in that complementary fashion, it at the very least provides him a solid enough floor that you feel a lot better
to be
about
an RB2 or a flex.
Yeah.
The issue I have with that is that Mahomes has not shown that he wants to do that. He does not want to dump the ball off to running backs. He wants to push the ball. He has to take a step in his development to actually make that a thing, right? So if he does that this year and he and Andy Reid sit down and Andy Reid convinces him that that's going to be part of your game this year, then great. But we haven't seen it.
Well, we also haven't seen them without Tyreek Hill for like the offense has to change. It just has to.
But they have a shitload of options that they brought in.
I don't agree that it has to change, though.
MVS can stretch the field, right?
I think they're going to stick with what they do because it's working, right? I mean, this is the most prolific offense we've seen in ever, right? So they're going to keep going with what they're doing until it doesn't work.
Well, they can't flood the field with 9 routes like they did the first 2 years. They couldn't even do that last year. And now that they have Tyreek, they can't do it this year either.
They're still consistently the most efficient offense in the NFL. That's what I'm saying. I mean, until it's not working, like they don't care that we want CEH to be productive, right? Like they don't care.
I agree with that.
They want their offense to win games for them. And far, they've been winning games with the way their offense is working. They'll change it when Mahomes starts struggling for an extended period of time. And even with the time that he struggled last season, that wasn't long enough for them to say, okay, we need to make a change here.
Well, I do think that they did make a little bit of a change by bringing in Rojo. And I do think that his struggles in that part of the season last year, and I was about to bring that up, that he did struggle because he wanted to push the ball still against 2 deep coverage and against bracket coverage and things that he couldn't push the ball against. I do think that he was stubborn, and I saw it. And it's not that he wasn't asked to do it, in my opinion. It's that he wouldn't do it. So there has to be a change in his mind.
I disagree because if you look at the efficiency numbers over the course of the season, right? Like, but it is the most efficient offense in the NFL, or one of the most efficient offenses.
But there was a period last season where they played a number of offenses or a number of defenses that kind of had their number and they didn't look so good. So
and that period didn't last. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because they didn't play the same.
We were scared,
but they didn't play the same teams that were capable of doing the same things against them on defense, and then they lost in the playoffs. So I don't think that their offense is the same as it was. Yeah. I think that on a game-to-game basis, it really depends on who their opponent is.
I think you're looking at a small sample size where Mahomes looked like shit and was making some stupid decisions. And
I think it had a lot to do with the defenses he was playing and what they were doing against him.
And I would also like to point out that there are iterations of an Andy Reid offense in which there is a role carved out for a running back to be able to contribute in that way. A lot of the changes that we saw to the Chiefs offense with Patrick Mahomes at the helm.
Have you ever heard of Brian Westbrook?
Yeah, like him, Jamal Charles, like doing and like a lot of like what they were doing schematically for that stretch of time did have to like you scheme parts of your offense anyway around the personnel that you have to deploy. And for as much as Marquez Valdes-Scantling can do some of those things, there is no like replacing Tyreek Hill just is not a thing that you just do with one guy. You have to do it in a creative number of ways in the aggregate to be it's like the same logic in my mind that I think about like a baseball team that loses like a long time stalwart at first base and then they just go with the platoon to be able to accomplish certain tasks and piecemeal it together that way. Like that is something that I think they could easily pivot back to because we've seen an Andy Reid offense do that before.
Okay. It's not a given to me that it's all going to fall into place, and it definitely could take time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I lean more towards I'm going to have to see this offense struggle before I believe it's going to struggle.
Right on.
I feel that. Yeah.
I can see that too. Right on.
For how good they've been, they deserve that benefit of the doubt.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to bet against them. Like it goes against all logic in my mind. I don't think that Tyreek Hill was the key that unlocked that offense. I think he was part of it, a big part of it, right? But, I mean, they've brought in some players. We'll see how those players fit into the scheme and see what they get out of them. Maybe they don't get what they're needing out of them, and the offense does regress a little bit. But I think even a regressed version of that offense, a Tyreek Hill-less version of that offense is still an elite offense.
Gotcha.
That'd be good. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, we have a lot of players and a lot of questions.
Yes.
So I love the talk, but we're 45 minutes in.
That is true. Yes.
So the score right now is Herms 0 and Chad -2. So a negative score or a 0 score can win the game. But just to make it competitive, this last question is worth 3 points.
Oh, all right.
Wow. So it all comes down, Herms. I know it sucks, man. All your good work is just thrown out the window. It all comes down to the last question.
It's like the game didn't even matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you learn when you come on Dynasty War Games. Is we're just about teaching and learning, right? So who wins the game is ancillary.
Well, that's because you never won.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
yeah.
All right. We're going to talk about that a little later. I think I have a win. I think I have a win I'm going to be able to throw out there, but we'll talk about that later.
All right.
All right. So the last player in this game is TJ Hawkinson. All right. So Hawk had over 60 catches each of the last 2 years. Hawk has been a tight end 1 in PPR twice in his career. Hawk has been a top 5 PPR tight end once in his career.
Yeah, he got
any buzzers?
That was my
any
buzzer.
buzz?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
what was
Any
the-
buzzers till I
again?
was done reading do not count. Let me read the last question again, and then you guys can buzz it. Okay. Ready? Has been a top 5 PPR tight end once in his career. Herms.
Gamesmanship on this one because Chad seemed pretty confident after that second clue, so I'm just going to go ahead and say the second thing.
Oh, that's shit.
Wow. The second thing. So, all right, we're gonna actually have to give Chad the win on this one.
There you go. Yeah, that was.
I just can't.
Sniping those points.
I don't want Chad to win, but Chad wins.
Felt bad.
Chad wins 1-0. I can't do it. As much as I want Chad to lose, I can't do it.
That's all right. We'll call it a tie. That was pretty good.
No, we need a win. We need a win in this game. So Chad wins this game. Hawkinson has not been a PPR tight end 1 twice in his career, but he has been a top 5 PPR tight end once in his career. So the first question I actually wrote out a lot longer, and I realized if I do that, like it's going to be thrown the freak out. So I had over 60 catches each of the last 2 years, despite less targets and playing in 4 less games.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to keep track with that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he had 60 catches both of the last 2 years, over 60 catches, but it's pretty much the same number. But he played in 4 less games this last year, and had a lot less targets. So it just shows to me he's progressing. What do you guys think about Hawk? Do you think he's a threat to be like one of the elites? Are we going to have 4 elite tight ends this year if everybody stays healthy?
I mean, what are we calling elite, right?
Like elite,
Kelsey's
like 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, 80 catches.
I mean, I think he could potentially do that, but I mean, I don't know that that's even. That's a very good season. Probably puts you tight end 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Can he do that?
But I mean, I still don't think that puts you in the Kelsey bracket. Andrew the Andrews bracket. If he recreates what he did last season, but
sure, it's not amazing, but I still think that's elite production. That's a player that you want in your flex in a tight end premium, right?
I have so many conflicted feelings about TJ Hawkinson. I'm just going to sit this one out.
No, talk to me.
No, frankly, I mean, I am torn between flashes that we have seen occasionally and the profile entering the league, in stark contrast with the reality that, it really has not happened yet. And I understand that patience with tight end is an important thing to have. And perhaps I am too eager to see something more. But this
You're gonna hate Trey McBride. That guy's going to take a while.
Yeah. I've seen people value him very, very highly in dynasty ranks and stuff, and I'm just like, you can't really talk me into him being like the tight end 5 or something, but like I view him a lot closer to maybe like 8, 9, 10, something like that. I mean, like, it's just I can't quite get there personally. It's just
I thought I was
8,
low
9, or
on
10,
him.
huh?
I
Wow.
thought I was low on him, but I have him higher than that. I mean,
Okay.
I
have him as
I have
tight
the
end
same
4.
thoughts. Yeah, I don't have him that high. I have the same.
So who do
thoughts.
you have as 4? Chad?
I still have so I have Pitts as my number 1.
Oh, Pitts. All right, then I have Hawk as 5. I forgot about Pitts.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that.
I mean, I'd love to say Goddard, but he's not in a high enough volume offense and has so much competition now. He's not going to be hyper targeted. I mean, he's very efficient. He's a great player, but he's not going to get enough targets. In a run first offense with 2 other great pass catchers. I don't think he'll be bad. I think he'll still be top 10, but it's hard to call him 5.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. I've just seen a lot of people say they'd rather have him than Kittle. I can't agree with that.
No, I'd rather have Kittle.
That's where I get hung up too. Yeah, that's a good point.
But do we think that he has the ability to step into that range is really what I'm asking. Like, I think he has the talent, but is he in the situation? Is it going to happen?
He has the talent, but the situation, and then also, frankly, just the hands still have not quite gotten there for me. That the catch percentage has not improved to a rate where I feel like now, not to say that like this is not a player that I absolutely want on my dynasty team, because I do. And like I said, like he's still well within that tight end 1 range for me. He is a guy that in a 12-team league or whatever, like needs to be like, you're feeling great if he's your tight end, like for sure. But in terms of arguing him in that top conversation,
right? Yeah, that's what I want to know.
I can't do it.
Obviously we all like Hawk and we all think he's a good tight end, but
yes.
is it? Yeah, right. That's the question. Is he going to elevate?
That's
the question with all these guys. That's why that's why I put all these guys on here.
This is what I'll add. I've been thinking over in my head because I'm so conflicted because I think he is for me about tight end 5, right? And I'm like, okay, well then why do I feel like I'm so down on him? And it's not because I have him lower than tight end 5. It's because I just in my head I'm like, does that matter? Right, that he's tight end 5.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So
is 5 the same as 9?
Yeah, I look at the rest of the tight ends and I say, okay, at cost, would I rather have Dalton Schultz or TJ Hawkinson? I'd rather have Dalton Schultz any day of the week. Give me Dalton Schultz at his price over TJ Hawkinson at his price.
Bingo.
And I guess that's the confliction with me is that yes, I think he's tight end 5. Yes, I think he's a talented player. No, I'm not willing to pay what it costs to get him.
Schultz is probably gettable with a second.
Yeah.
If you have like what is projected to be a high 2023 second, yeah, you can get Dalton Schultz with that.
And like that's kind of how I like to aggregate dynasty value kind of in my brain a little bit, is just like also like once you get past like the top tier of any position, is really look at it on a like production expectation basis mixed with like what's the relative value kind of baked into that one little cookie,
right.
and kind of, like Dalton Schultz is a good example of one of those players. I think if you really want to go on the cheap, and caveat, major just asterisk here, like I'm not saying this player's higher than TJ Hawkinson. I want to make that very clear.
I know what you're going to say.
But if you want to go on the cheap and get yourself a Cole Kmet or something, like you could be doing some good stuff. Yeah. And then, everybody knows how I feel about Pat Freiermuth. I don't have to say that.
Yeah, that's where I thought you were going.
Look, okay, and I reference this fun fact all the time. By the time he took over the job, like after Juju went down and Eric Ebron went down, from that span all the way through him getting concussed in that Minnesota game or whatever, led all tight ends in the NFL in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns in the red zone from the 5, the 10, and the 20. That was Pat Fryermuth, number one in all those categories. Just throwing that out there, guys. But
in the red zone, because he was the guy.
Yes, like absolutely.
He was absolutely the guy.
And now that you've
can't be
opened
discounted.
Yeah, you crack the door open, and now I'm just going to Kool-Aid Man kick it down. Like, yes, honestly, like that level of like red zone production from a rookie tight end, people are really underrating that. That is like super bonkers nuts how good he was. And we always talk about like early production being a really important predictive thing. And like, yes, I know like red zone stuff's a little wonky. I understand Ben's not there anymore. It's fine, but like, y'all, he was so good.
It's not it's not just that he's a touchdown dependent tight end. It's that he's really good in the red zone. Is what I think he showed that at Penn State too.
100%, man. I would rather take a chance because, like, if you're looking at stuff like tight ends or whatever, like the profiles that you're really going to be looking for anyway are going to just be like the high volume, like actually catching the ball guys, or just like the insane touchdown monsters. Those are the ones that the two that are going to do it for you. Like Hawkinson's just in like a weird middle ground between the two, where he kind of does a little bit of both, but not one like enough of one or the other to like make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Like that's why he's frustrating.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. I agree. I think with the tight ends, right? Especially in tight end premium, you want a guy who is separated from the rest of the guys. And Kittle gives you that, or gave you that. I think he will again, but gives you that. We'll just say that. Kelsey definitely gives you that. Andrews definitely gives you that, right? I'm not going to predict TJ Hawkinson getting into that bracket of players and pay what it takes to get him. Like it's a lot to give up for a guy, and project from him going as in that 12-game span, him having a relatively good season to having this elite tight end season where he's doing something that we've only seen a handful of guys in the last decade do it. There's not very many players that do it. Tight end is a very, very, very specific, ridiculously hard thing to top, right? I mean, I don't know. It's just tough for me to predict that and pay.
Sometimes it's extremely situation dependent, right? Do you remember Troy Drayton? Well, that's a really old reference. Do you remember Gary Barnidge?
Yeah, there you go. Shout out. Yeah, what a guy.
Gary Barnidge was the luckiest man in the NFL the year that he had all that production for Cleveland. And then he went to Miami and was nothing because he really was not that talented of a player. He just was in a situation, and that's what it can happen across positions, but I feel like it's high. It's like sort of a hyper focus for tight ends.
Let me ask you. This should be a fun exercise. Let me ask you guys a question. I'm gonna go down. I pulled up my tight end rankings here. I'm gonna go down from the bottom to the top, and tell me at cost the players you would take over TJ Hawkinson.
Okay.
Right. Zach Ertz.
No.
And this is all. I mean, I'm going
at
off the bottom based on value. So this is
a 12-team tight end premium super flex. We're saying, right?
Yep. So let's say what do you guys think Ertz is worth?
Actually, that's a tough one. Ertz is worth a late second or 2/3.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So let's roll with that. Or Hawk, who's worth a first plus.
I paid a first and a late. I paid 103 and 210 for him.
I'd rather roll with Ertz and figure it out because there are some really talented tight ends in college.
And with that 210, you might get McBride. You know what I mean? So for a third and 210, you get Arizona's entire tight end situation.
Yeah. David Njoku.
Ooh.
Oh god.
No,
I think he's about the same price as Ertz, so you're looking at probably 2/3.
I don't think so. I think Njoku's price is shot the hell up.
I don't think anybody's
since he signed that mega contract and
people are excited.
Yeah. I think that Chad, you're not going to get him.
Have you guys seen him traded at all?
No, I haven't. That's
not in any of my leagues. No,
because nobody's paying it. Because nobody's paying it.
Because nobody, because everybody who has Njoku is not trading him for a second.
Pull him up in DTC. Let's see what they say about it.
I will.
I don't think
it's going to represent his true value to his owners, but I will.
And even then, honestly, I think in that situation, I would rather go with Hawk because Njoku, while being very physically gifted, is extremely good in theory.
I mean, he's a 4 in DTC, and there's no way you're getting him for a 25 second or 2/3. There's no way somebody's trading him for him. It's not realistic.
I'm not doing that. So I would rather just take because like I said, Njoku is good in theory. Hawkinson is good in practice. We already know that that's a thing. Taking that large of a gamble.
Though. I mean, that's built into the cost though. That's why you're paying.
Yeah, I understand.
But I'll still take Hawk because I could just be throwing away assets on Njoku.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'd rather have Hawk as well. Cole Kmet.
Hey, Cole Kmet, baby.
Cole Kmet could be nothing.
What's
Kmet's easily price? Be nothing.
What's Kmet's price in your opinion?
It's rising a little more now that I think people are really coming around to it. But the only thing that's really prevented Kmet from providing more value is the fact that he scored 2 touchdowns in his career, both of which were as a rookie. So it's but the target share that he was able to secure even this last year, there's enough going for him that it's so cheap comparatively that he'll score. He will score eventually.
He's a 5.1 in DTC, which tells me, which is probably about right. If you offer a mid to high second for Kmet, you're getting him all day. And if you do that, I think you're a little crazy, right? He's really worth 2/3 or a late second. You're probably not getting him for 2/3, but a late second.
I don't think 5.1 is equal to a second in DTC's.
It's not, but it's probably because they don't have late second, right? So he's probably equal to the 211.
Yeah.
Or a 25 second or something like that. You know what I mean?
That sounds about right. Okay, so this is where I start going these guys all day long for me personally. Dawson Knox at his cost.
I would much rather have Hawkinson.
I'd rather have Hawkinson.
See, I'd rather have Dawson Knox at his price. I mean, I think he's another late second. I think he's another late second guy. I'd rather pay that than pay first plus for Hawkins.
But I think that's criminally undervaluing Dawson Knox at 2.
That's what he's going for, though.
That's true. That's true. You're saying at his current cost. So, yeah, I might rather. But I don't want to go out there with Dawson Knox as my tight end one.
There's a very real chance we're looking at Robert Tonyan 2.0 too. That's kind of a and at least in terms of just a harsh regression in the other direction. Because Dawson Knox he's a very talented player that I like a lot, and it's a slightly hyperbolic statement, but when you just look at the number of touchdowns that he was able to achieve versus the minuscule work share he was able to secure, it is an alarming thing.
But similar to Freiermuth, they look for him in the red zone.
I think that's countered with the efficiency, though. His yard per catch the last 3 seasons is 13.86, 12, and 12. Right? That's some of the highest in the league.
Damn good for
he's being hyper efficient on every reception.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying he could be. I still have him on plenty of teams where I feel decent about it. But the chance of that makes me a little uneasy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he has to cement himself in the offense, but I don't know. I really like him as a player. I think
I like him as a player too. I think
I could go either way.
Yeah, and I think he's an ascending. Dawson Knox is an ascending player. I think you're going to see him used in more than just the red zone this year. They have added weapons underneath, but like I said, I think he's an ascending player, and I think he's going to command targets underneath.
I hope so.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting from this then is just as exercise. I just kind of wanted to see where kind of my head's at with Hawkinson compared to you guys, and I guess I am just lower on him compared to you guys because I'd rather have these guys, these late second, maybe 2/3 fringe players than pay a first and an early second, which I don't even think. I think it would take more than that to get Hawk in most tight end premium leagues.
I do see elite talent in Hawk. I I think that the catch rate is a really good point by Herms. He had a lot of drops. I'm hoping a lot of that was just concentration. He had concussion problem. Hopefully he clears the cobwebs and gets over that.
Yeah.
That's really my only concern. Otherwise, I think he's one of the most talented tight ends in the NFL.
He has all the traits.
Yeah, and he can also block, which keeps him on the field. So, hell of a player. Just crossing my fingers, I guess. I don't have a ton of shares like most players, but anyway. All right, so I'm gonna call that one a tie. I kind of juked the rules, and then we had a little bit of gamesmanship at the end, so we're calling that a tie. And I do have a question at the end. So if we are tied,
so my record still stands. I've never lost a game on Dynasty War Games.
That's not true.
That is very true.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look up the statistical.
I've never lost a game. Look it up.
Okay.
Ask Mike.
I will have to. All right. So the next game is called Who Am I?
Okay.
And I am gonna throw out. I have 5 total facts about each player. And after each fact, you are buzzable, right? Okay. So I'm going to read a fact. If you know it, buzz in. If you don't know it, obviously don't buzz in. But yeah, this is also a game where there's -1 for a wrong answer and +1 for a right answer, right? So they will get progressively easier. Just so
progressively easier. Okay.
Yes. All right, so first question, who am I? I had one more target in my second I had one more target in my second year than my first and had exactly the same number of catches.
Oh God. I don't know.
I was wide receiver 57 in PPR in each of my first 2 seasons. I played in all but 1 game in my first 2 seasons. I was drafted in the 4th round in 2020 and was number 128 overall.
In the first round?
4th round.
4th round.
128 overall. I have 327 yards and 5 touchdowns in 5 career playoff games, and I am a wide receiver. Herms.
I'm taking a stab. I'm probably wrong, but it sounds like Gabe Davis.
Gabe Davis is the correct answer, my friend.
There you go.
Good job.
As time rolled along, I was like, wait a minute. But the playoff stats, I was like,
yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's why I saved that for last. Right?
Yeah, that's good. I never would have gotten it. I'm glad you did.
So, I mean, the reason I threw this together on Gabe Davis is I'm trying to create a profile of a player that has been exactly the same for his first 2 years and then seemed to have broken out in a playoff game. Do we believe it? Because it really means a lot to his value. It really does.
I believe in him from the standpoint that, like, whenever he got the opportunity to perform in that role that he is going to fill, the nose for the end zone is just so evident. It just
sure
is.
Yeah, he scores.
And like in the, kind of tying it back to, something we were talking about a little bit earlier, like the Herms candidate for best offense in the NFL, at least in terms of the high flying firepower. I think that's the Bills. Like that to me, like, dude, like, yo, it's the fact that and I cannot remember the stat at all. I wrote this in an article a long time ago, but I remember doing the research to check it out. But like in games when either Emmanuel Sanders was out or left early, I did a dive on Gabriel Davis's performance, and I was just like, yo, like this guy, like he's a spark plug to that offense. And like, it's a small sample size, sure, don't get me wrong, but even just from like an anecdotal standpoint of watching the Bills when that happens, there is a dimension that he adds that is just like so good that like I can't get past what some of the like actual statistical evidence, but also just like the anecdotal eye evidence that like I see with my face on the television is telling me. So it's like, I'm not trying to get too excited about it, because the last thing I want to do is contribute to the hype that gives him the helium that makes him just completely out of proportion and just everything's messed up forever value-wise with him. But I'm on that train. I get it. It makes sense. It's also kind of the reason, like, and even then, my hesitancy about my criticism of Dawson Knox was for the same reason, because even then, like, but the offense is so good. But
define you're on that train. Where do you think Gabe Davis, like, what's his ceiling and what's his likely outcome to you? Is he a wide receiver one?
I don't think so, unless it was some sort of ridiculous touchdown output that just, moseys him in there somehow. But like what I think he could do is kind of like, if you told me that Gabe Davis could perform at a level akin to what we've seen from DJ Moore at times, I don't think that would be ridiculous.
Okay. Cool. Different players, different type of production.
Oh, for sure. I just mean like raw, like
numbers,
points and stuff. Yeah,
points.
That's
raw
all
points. Yeah, because DJ Moore is going to get his numbers from catches, and Gabe Davis is going to get his numbers from touchdowns.
Absolutely, just point total type stuff. Like that's what I'm talking about.
So Jesse, I'm sure you'll remember this, but it was not too long ago. Gabe Davis was my number one owned player. Because he was going in the 5th round of rookie drafts,
right?
Late 4th round of rookie drafts, very easily acquired. I remember Daniel Jeremiah talking him up all offseason, and I loved it, Daniel Jeremiah, and he kept bringing up a really good point that nobody else on that Bills offense can do what Gabe Davis does. Nobody has size, nobody has his skill set. They brought him there for a reason.
There's there are very few players in the NFL that have his skill set. First of all, at his size,
but they all of their receivers were small, and he's a big guy.
Yeah.
So that was another thing going for him, where he's going to see the field. Because he's just big, and they don't have that on their roster. So there's nobody.
And he runs a 4 flat.
Yeah. So there's nobody competing for that spot that he has. Right. He's going to see the field, ignore the draft position, take him late, and give him a shot. So that was my go-to. Once he hit that, shortly after that playoff performance, where his value started being really touted, and everybody started writing articles and stuff like that, that was the sell window for me. That was the sell window. I sold him on every single roster I had. I got a few early seconds for him, got a few mid seconds for him. I'm completely out on him now. I don't. I think with the draft value, I have trouble looking at him now and saying, okay, we see a player who's hyper efficient. He gets a good amount of snap percentage, right? He sees the field a decent amount, and his touchdown record is, like you were saying, is phenomenal.
He's got the skill set to repeat it.
He does,
and he's repeated his season 2 years in a row, right?
Yes,
and now he's Emmanuel Sanders started the year last year in his position, right? And now he's taken over that position. Emmanuel Sanders obviously broke down, looked great.
Yeah.
But he took over that position. So it's all of the players that they brought in the offseason are all underneath players. Right, nobody else is a downfield player besides Gabe Davis. Yep. Stephon Diggs has the speed to get downfield, but it's not really his game, right? So he can get open. He can get open on a deep post all day.
Diggs is a pretty complete wide receiver. He can do anything.
Well,
He's a pretty
that's
complete
true.
wide receiver.
That's true. Diggs is one of those guys. I mean, like he gets separation in his sleep.
And he's a
Right.
Maryland guy, so obviously that means he's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's great by default.
But like, so what? Here's how I see Gabe Davis: 6'2", 210, runs a four flat, right, and is exactly a perfect fit for his quarterback, right? He tracks the ball well. He can definitely catch the deep ball. Josh Allen has probably the strongest arm in the NFL. So like I think they felt great together. I don't ever think that he's going to be a wide receiver one because he just doesn't do the other things.
Yeah.
Right?
So where I was going with my initial point was that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all right, man. It happens. We're just talking football here. So
Right
so when I'm trading him for an early second, right? I'm predicting. I'm pretty much betting I'm placing my hedges and betting against him, right? And saying that he can't come higher than that early second round value. And I still find that to be true. I think he would have to. He would have to
he's never going to be an alpha.
He would have to keep that consistency and be a very good, consistent wide receiver, 16, 17 kind of guy. And I think that's his ceiling. I just
agreed.
I don't see a guy that's going to get, 120 120 receptions a year.
However,
I see a guy that's going to get 60, 70, maybe 80 receptions on a really, really good year and do some really good things with it. But he's going to be a flex guy. He's not going to be a guy you're sticking in your wide receiver 1-2 slot and saying, okay, I'm rolling out with this guy. He's going to win me a league.
Right. His ceiling is that Will Fuller year. Right.
Yeah.
That one Will Fuller year where he was healthy for most of it. Like that's his ceiling, or that Robbie Anderson year.
Like, do you guys ever see him getting the production to be even talked about as a first round, as a player you're trading a first round pick for?
No.
Although I will say a couple things. Like one, from the standpoint of just like flipping him for that cost now, like it's a financially, well, quote unquote financially prudent thing to do just based off of like the return on investment of the initial investment cost. Like you take that stuff every day. It makes sense to flip it over and turn it over for that. But I do have a more apt, like somewhat player-ish type comparison because like my DJ Moore comparison was more, again, just like very like the points that they provide you.
Production based, yeah.
So from a more specific standpoint, I ask you both this. Could he be Brandon Cooks?
No. I do not believe he could be Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is a complete wide receiver, and I do not think that Gabe Davis is.
But we were just talking about a player that may only end up catching a certain amount of those passes, between like the 60-ish to 80-ish or whatever, and doing the whole thing or whatever. But those are the types of players that, especially in Dynasty, like they get slept on all the time. But then you think at the back of your mind, well, damn, if I just had one of those guys on my team, I'm going to have to go out and find one. Eventually, at some point in your, like, because in the process of building your team or whatever, like, regardless, like, from, like, rebuild to contention or whatever, there's a point in your team building process that you look for those ancillary pieces, and then you're just like, God, why don't I have any of these guys?
Yeah. No, like, I completely agree with you. I was going to say, I think that's his ceiling. I think Brandon Cooks, that's a perfect... I mean, I don't think you can get a more perfect example of what his ceiling could be. Brandon Cooks is that exact player.
I disagree. I think that skill sets are different. And I'm going to read you Brandon Cooks' finishes in PPR. 13-9, 15-13. I'm going to skip the year that he had the concussion, 16. I don't think that Gabe Davis has that ceiling.
Well, that's what I was just saying. I think that's his ceiling. I think his ceiling
I don't think it is that high.
15, 16.
13-9, 15-13. All right, and let's go standard. 12-8-7, 14-15.
Well, yeah, but that's purely based on on efficiency numbers, and that's what Gabe Davis has in bunches.
And the good
Okay,
news
but-
is that Gabe Davis can offset some of that stuff that you may be concerned about with the fact that in the touchdown category with Josh Allen in the Buffalo offense, you could maybe feel a little bit better about that production being slightly higher. So in the aggregate, it essentially works out to a similar level of point production anyhow. Like,
My problem with that is that I feel like Brandon Cooks has done this over an extended period of time with numerous teams by
Nobody's
by
saying
being
that
a
it's Brandon
complete.
Cooks.
I thought you just said that.
No, we're saying that's his ceiling. Like that's the absolute best he can be. If
So he might
everything
have
goes
one
right.
Brandon Cooks season.
No,
is
I'm not
what
even
you're
saying he'll ever have a Brandon Cooks year. I'm saying if everything goes right, if he is the absolute best player he can possibly be, and and he gets the opportunity in that offense, and they say, okay, we believe in this guy, we're gonna make him our wide receiver 1-2 kind of player, and Josh Allen is still throwing like a madman and MVP candidate, he can be a Brandon Cooks kind of player. Right?
theoretically, Josh Allen is the type of quarterback that could support two extremely viable fantasy wide receivers.
Yeah,
I believe sure, but not one of them. Gabe Davis is not going to be wide receiver 9, right? So I believe that if there could be a season where Gabe Davis is is that player, right? Where everybody else gets hurt and they just hyper target him, fine. But I just don't think that is who he is. Right, I don't think he's the caliber of Brandon Cooks, and I don't think he'll put up the production that Brandon Cooks. Like it's really hard to put up the consistent numbers that Brandon Cooks has for so long. He's a much better wide receiver, and I feel that that's the reason he's put up those numbers over. Like I just don't think that Gabe Davis will. So maybe that's his. Maybe you guys call that his ceiling, but I don't think it's a realistic ceiling.
No, I mean, so I think
I understand what you're saying, Chad. I just don't see it as realistic.
We're kind of saying the same thing,
right? Like when you're saying realistic, I'm not saying that I would put money on Gabe Davis being Brandon Cooks. I'm not saying that I would give him a 20% chance of being Brandon Cooks. I'm saying that if
there's a 1% chance,
right, his absolute best outcome is a guy like Brandon Cooks, where you see him as a perennial mid wide receiver 2 that is going to put up very efficient numbers, put up very good touchdown numbers, which Brandon Cooks did earlier in his career. I don't think he's done that as of late, but and just be a sound guy that you slot into your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 slot and feel okay with.
Yeah, that's the extreme ceiling for him. I don't think he'll ever reach it. I just don't think he has the skill set to reach it. That's my whole point on him. So my whole point is that I think he has the skill set to. He's going to be really boom or bust, and if he's not what we think he is, he could absolutely be wide receiver 57 again, right? Or he could take that leap and jump up into like top 20. But
for sure, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. The interesting thing with guys like Brandon Cooks is that you can't really look at their targets. You can't really look at their number of receptions that they have and predict the outcome of their season, because they can have a 68, 69 reception season, just throwing a random number out there, and then have an 85 reception season, which is still all relatively low, right? Mid-tier kind of reception numbers, and put up, fairly close to wide receiver 1 kind of seasons. And I just see that as if I see what you're saying, he's going to find success, that's where he's going to find it.
Yeah, it's a good point.
All in all, I think people are maybe hoping that he could reach kind of around what we were expecting maybe for Michael Gallup.
Somebody just activated my Siri, by the way.
Oh, nice.
One of you guys sounds like me. All right, cool. So 1 point to Herms after all that. Next player.
Yeah, that was fairly impressive, man. I never would have guessed that in a million years.
All right. Next player. Remember the theme. All right. I have had at least 100 targets, 59 catches, and 850 yards in each of my first 2 seasons.
Say that one more time.
I have had at least 100 targets, 59 catches and 850 yards in each of my first 2 seasons.
Okay.
I have played in all but 2 games in my first 2 seasons. I fell from a wide receiver 2 in my first season to a wide receiver 4 in fantasy in my second season. Herms.
Is this Laviska Shenault?
And the score is tied because it is not Laviska Shenault. That guy's never put up close to those numbers.
It was a gamble, I will admit.
So okay, so read the last 2 hints again.
The last 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Wow. Okay.
You could just read them. You could just read them quick.
I played in all but 2 games in my first 2 seasons. I fell from a wide receiver 2 in my first season to a wide receiver 4 in fantasy in my second season. And Chad, you get to hear the next clue before you have to answer. I had 11 touchdowns my first year and fell to second. Oh, I'm sorry, fell to 2 in my second. And you don't even have to answer now if you don't want to. Oh, Herms is killing himself.
Oh, no.
Chad, do you want to answer? You don't have to. All right. I have the same last name as a legendary bass player and frontman.
What? Oh. Legendary bass player and frontman?
Yep. Legendary. Concentrate on the last one. I had 11 touchdowns my first year and fell to 2 in my second. Chad, give me an answer. Or you can pass and take a 0. Incorrect answer is worth -1.
Yeah. I'm going to pass.
Wow. Herms, for half point. Do you know the
Well,
answer?
you didn't tell me that if I pass, he's going to get the chance at a half point.
Okay. Herms, do you just know the answer?
I would rather just get into the discussion. I mean, it's just like...
You know who it is.
I feel like such a dumb, man. Like, it's bad.
Chad, I can't believe you didn't get this.
Who is it?
Just say it. I feel too dumb.
It's Mr. Chase Claypool.
It's like, I feel so stupid. I should easily have known.
I mean, I gave you all his
You're a Steelers.
I know.
Steelers fan didn't get Chase Claypool.
That's why I feel so stupid. I'm just like, it was right there.
Oh, no.
It really was right there. I mean,
I honestly don't even think of Chase Claypool as an NFL player. Like, he's just never
What?
in my head. So, I don't know. Like, Chase Claypool's just never a guy I think about. So, I'm like thinking, I'm trying to think of all these young players, and I swear Chase Claypool just never entered my mind.
the wide receiver 37 last year. He's better than Hollywood Brown statistically. And points wise. You know what I mean? Like, he's a better player. This is why I put him on here. Like, because he was so good his first year, his second year got thrown in the trash, and he still had 59 catches and 850 yards. He just only had 2 touchdowns instead of 11. And 2 of those, the first year, were rushing.
Mm-hmm.
So
those sweeps they did around the goal line to get, like, I was really hoping they were going to manufacture more of that work for him, because the physical mismatch that he presents, like, it was so good. Like, he is such a fuck. I'm going to shut up. I have so many things I can say about Chase Claypool.
Please say. Before that, Chad, do you not know who Primus is?
No, I don't know who that is.
You never heard of Primus or Les Claypool?
Good old Les Claypool, dude.
No.
Okay, man. Then I'm doing you a favor. When we're done this podcast, just put that on before you go to bed, man. That is really good music.
Jerry was a race car driver, man. That's
hell yeah.
That's all you need to know.
That's some 90s gold right there. Yeah.
Oh, dude.
I mean, he's like, when you talk about like bass players, he's like Flea. You know what I mean? Except that he was the front man. He's the only name another bass player that was the front man of his band.
Lemmy Kilmister, R.I.P.
Okay.
There are very few. I mean, very few.
Very
few.
Like it. Yeah.
Well, at least like notable ones. You know what I mean?
Right.
To be a legendary bass player frontman, it's a very short list. It's an extremely short list.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah,
so
so
now
the
now,
problem with Claypool is that the hype for him got fairly loud.
yeah, it got out of control. Really,
Yeah, after that first year, and I think that
what he did
it
to
always
the
goes
Eagles.
around to hurt somebody if they don't feed that reactionary hype. So he's kind of just fallen off because everybody said, all right, he didn't do it this season. He's done. He'll never do it. And then I guess it just doesn't hurt that. I mean, it doesn't help that Deontay Johnson's there eating up every target in the world.
Well, but my whole point with this though is that he didn't drop in targets or catches or yardage.
It was the
Only
touchdowns.
touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like if you were buying him at that hyped cost, you were thinking, okay, he takes a step forward.
Okay,
So
but his quarterback didn't allow him to do that.
But yeah, no, but that's beside the point, right? Like it's not about can we find excuses why he didn't do it? It's he didn't do it, right? Like he didn't take the step forward.
Okay, but I don't think that way.
No, but that's just a common practice in the world of Dynasty.
Sure, you're right.
Football,
You're exactly right, and that's why he's lost value. You're exactly right.
And and then look, sometimes I don't always have the greatest takes in the world. Sometimes people, don't always agree with what Herms has to say, but I will tell you what, when it comes to one thing and one thing only, I'm pretty consistent and usually pretty accurate. And I'll tell you what, that's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the thing about Chase Claypool is that a lot of people got wrong. Well, first and foremost, just like side notes, like the vast underestimation of Deontay Johnson perpetually frustrates me, and people are only now kind of starting to come around, thank God. But at least as far as like this idea that he was able to possibly take a step forward that people had in their minds, schematically within that offensive system, I mean, it was not possible. Like I've watched the team, and like, yes, I understand, different offensive coordinators throughout the course of my life or whatever. Yes, things have changed, but like at least insofar as like the Steelers hire the same types of people to accomplish the same types of things generally.
Right.
Like the overall philosophy largely remains the same.
Absolutely, more than any other franchise except for maybe the Patriots, but more than any other franchise.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, for Claypool to be able to take a dramatic step forward was never really within the realm of possibility, because he is in kind of just like we'll flex you around the other side of the field while we let the guy that we pick to be out there kind of on the, the island doing his thing or whatever, like let them dominate. Like that's what Deontay Johnson did. That's what Antonio Brown did for so long. That's
actually absolutely a Mike Tomlin thing. He's a my guy kind of guy.
They
does the same thing with running backs.
Exactly. As far as the running back, and that's also the for you Dynasty folks out there, if you're wondering who the person behind Najee is that you care about, the answer is none of them. Just saying. But like when it comes to the wide receivers in Pittsburgh, like they dub the slightly smaller but still just like super efficient, creating space, doing their thing guy, and they will pepper that guy with all the targets in the world. And for whatever is left for the ancillary piece that they rotate in and out to be able to do different stuff creatively. And that's what Juju did for a really long time, opposite of Antonio Brown, and led to his success. Juju's falling off is a completely different story that would be a whole other 15-minute thing. But my point with Claypool is really just like, I understand it. He was a fetch player, and by fetch, anybody, it's a term that I use on my podcast all the time. Shout out the movie Mean Girls. Like, we can't just make fetch happen. Like, there are, like,
wait, explain.
So, like, it's throughout the course of the movie, the Mean Girls, the one character Gretchen is trying to have the word fetch catch on. She'll just like throughout the movie,
did you just make that up?
No, it's a very famous thing from the movie.
You'll have a sketch like that too.
Yeah. So it's like, throughout the whole movie, she's just like, oh my God, that's so fetch. And then there's one part where Rachel McAdams' character is just like, stop saying fetch. It's not going to happen. Like, you can say something however many times you want, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And like, those types of players are so frustrating to me. And now that he's really fallen out of favor to the degree of just like, and like following the team, anybody who wants great insight into the Steelers, the beat is very well covered. I really like what the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette does. Mark Cabali at The Athletic does a really good job as well. But it's just fun fact, if you want to research that stuff and get really good insight on the team, that's how you can do that. But like Claypool just like being a doofus at practice and doing some stuff, and even on field we would see some of the antics, and like those are things that are not really tolerated in a Tomlin environment. And now we see the team backfill at talent, investing in George Pickens, and also like low key Calvin Austin. Guys, do not sleep on that. I'm just saying there's a more than realistic chance. Year one, he may be in the Ray McLeod type mold, but as time evolves, who knows if he could eventually maybe be the Deontay Johnson replacement. But beside the point, back to Claypool.
Real quick, Herb.
Yes,
I'm gonna let you return to your rant, but
that was very Kanye of you just now.
Chad's got to go.
Oh no.
Yeah, so we're running long. Herms, if you want to stay with me, we're gonna keep going.
I'm down. I feel bad for
play
talking
this last game. We're gonna finish this game, me and you.
That's what we need, man.
And then we're gonna play the next game. So, real life calls for Chad, so we gotta let him go. It's been an hour and a half anyway. So, Chad, talk to me.
So, yes, time zones suck. You know, when you work with people in other countries and stuff, you know, they work when you're supposed to be sleeping, which is horrible.
Yeah.
So now I have to work, and it's almost 11 o'clock at night. But anyways, Herm, it was awesome having you on, man. I really appreciate you coming on here and being a good guest.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Of course. And yeah, I look forward to listening to the rest of this podcast after it's up and running and checking out what you guys chat about here. So,
well, and Chad, just so you know, you are forfeiting. Herm.
Yes, yeah, I'll take the L.
When we have a winner that is not Chad Mendoza.
It's the filibuster. That's how you do it.
Yeah. And we do know that if Chad drops, the stream continues. We've encountered this before, so we'll be fine.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So,
all right, guys. Well,
Chad, take care of your business, take care of your family, my friend, and we will see you next week.
All right. Later, everyone.
Later, man. All right. So, did you want to finish that Steelers rant, or do we want to move on?
It was like right. It's like what I'm really leading to is that for next year, I'm not afraid of anything that could happen in terms of like, oh well, Pickens could come in immediately and do some like. I expect a reasonably similar level-ish of production from Chase Claypool. We'll see what happens in the touchdown department. But what I'm really terrified of is 2024 and forward. No, 2023 and forward.
Right.
That's where I start to get panicked. I think for this year, dynasty managers have enough time to figure some stuff out and maybe hold on. But that potato is starting to get a little hot in your hands. Like some moves have to be made.
I will tell you this about Chase Claypool. All right. And you heard it here first. That man is Vincent Jackson. Are you old enough to remember him?
Absolutely, yeah.
As a prospect, Vincent Jackson was one of the greatest of all time and came in to the NFL and was kind of a diva, right? But he performed. And he had a run of, I think it was 4 or 5 consistent wide receiver 1 in fantasy, and I was a redraft player at that time. But Vincent Jackson was that guy that you could take every year. And Chase Claypool is every bit as talented as him. He just has to improve his football IQ. He's raw, right? He's got to learn the savvy. Like Vincent Jackson knew how to out physical guys and use his athleticism. Claypool has an idea of it, but he has to refine it. I truly believe that he was so limited by Ben last year. Like, I mean, it's just one of the most obvious things in the NFL last year was that Ben couldn't throw more than 7 yards, and it had no zip on it when he did. Like all he could do is dump off to Najee and Deontay, right? Deontay can get open underneath, right? Absolutely. Chase Claypool cannot. That's not his game. He gets open deep, right? Kenny Pickett is not exactly the the quarterback that you want to pair with a player like him, but he's going to at least be competent, right? Yeah. And the Troubadour actually has a strong arm. And there's a chance that guy is your answer. And, Kenny Pickett never really even, he's going to get the chance because of the draft capital. But, if Trubisky comes out next year and is just the man, it could happen. It's not out of the question.
It's not. And the thing that.
And he has the skill set that matches Claypool.
Not only that, but, at least as far as, that point goes, the bye week is late enough in the season that Trubisky has a runway that if he can take off, there would be not much of a the caveat
there's
there
not
being,
a natural break point week 5. This guy's struggling and we're bringing in the rookie.
Yeah, it's late enough that if the runway is long enough that if he takes off, he takes off. The caveat being if by the end of the year, there's no playoff contention, then you throw in Pickett because you just want to see the kid. But
there's a real chance that Pickett doesn't play this year. I mean, the Steelers are an organization with a lot of pride, and they're certainly not gonna play someone that doesn't give them the best chance to win. Right? They're not gonna put on a quarterback just because they want to get him time. That's not they want to make the playoffs at all costs.
Yeah. So the biggest the scenario in which Kenny Pickett reaches the field and Trubisky's really good is week 18. That is in this specific scenario, that is when he sees the field.
Right.
But and I honestly at this point, I'm still unsure as to how
it's all on the
out,
table.
but,
I mean,
of course,
Trubisky could absolutely come out and be terrible and get replaced at halftime of week 1.
Yeah. And then also,
I don't think that's going to happen.
There's also a realistic chance that Kenny Pickett wins the job outright in camp. And another thing that's really important for people to because an important thing for people to keep in mind is that a lot of the money that Trubisky and you have to, everybody has to do this with all NFL contracts. You have to look under the hood and see where the money really comes from. A lot of stuff is incentive laden. They're not actually paying him that much money, so it would not be a massive waste of funds to have Trubisky as the backup if Kenny Pickett wins the job. So
and if you're Tomlin, he's a very emotional guy. So who's to say that the emotion of the hometown guy, the guy that just played at Pitt, played in that stadium, isn't the right guy to lead your team in Pittsburgh? You know what I mean? That's kind of a coach thing in a way.
Absolutely.
That's kind of the way that coaches think, and emotions do get involved.
That's what is human beings, man. It's human beings coaching other human beings.
Absolutely.
That's
what I hear on other podcasts that they always well, if you consider that it's going to be rational coaching, then this is what'll happen. But that never happens. There's never rational coaching because they're all. Well, not Tomlin, but all of the other coaches in the NFL, except for Andy Reid and a couple others, are coaching for their jobs, right? So they do crazy shit that they think is going to save their job. They don't care about the players.
Look at Matt Rule. I mean, that's an example of
absolutely.
We like to tell ourselves, oh, well, rationally, it's this dude ain't out here thinking rationally.
He insisted the year that they gave Robbie Anderson all that money that he was going to be a thing, right? Robbie Anderson had 1,100 yards.
Yeah, because it was coaching him at Temple. He was my guy.
Yeah, so exactly. He insisted that he's better than he didn't say it, but his actions insisted that this is my guy over DJ Moore. And then last year, what happened? His talent showed you that he can't continue to do that and keep his job.
When a coach, when a coach gives the old wink and nod to homerism, and then it doesn't work out, it's just you screw yourself into a corner you can't get out of, and that's why they're there now. Well, absolutely. One of the reasons. That's not the only. That's not the only reason they're there. But yeah. So all in all, to steer it back to Claypool land, it's Dynasty managers have a little bit more time to figure it out than they think they do. I think people that are expecting a big Pickens thing right away, I wouldn't anticipate that.
No.
But when you start to feel the heat a little bit more ramping up, you're going to have to make some tough calls. And frankly, even as a Steelers fan that has pretty decent insight into the team, I don't know what to tell anybody to do.
Deontay Johnson's not even going to be on the team next year.
I hope not, but I think you're right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Who have you guys given a second contract at wide receiver besides Antonio Brown?
It's been a while.
I don't remember one.
I mean,
I can name 7 that you haven't.
Yeah, Manny Sanders out the window. I mean, Mike Wallace out the window. You know, just a bunch of
Plaxico
out the window. Yeah, like this stuff just happens, man. Like it's frustrating, but it's true.
Santana Moss. Didn't he start in Pittsburgh?
Santonio Holmes. That is
Santonio Holmes.
Yes,
but still, I mean, that guy was a wide receiver 1. You were like later.
That Super Bowl catch just
Hines.
Oh.
I think Hines.
Love me some Hines Ward.
I think you gave Hines Ward a second contract.
It's a very,
but it wasn't a
list.
big one.
No,
because he was a Pittsburgh guy. He was never going anywhere else.
And then I guess technically speaking, well, not technically, it literally happened. Juju, it was a 1-year deal, but we did. So
I don't count it.
Hey, but it was a second deal.
They didn't give him a real second contract.
That's true.
They gave him a prove it second contract.
So, I mean, it's a short list. It is a short list. One of the things that kind of alarms me about that is, at least just schematically, I worry about a Pickens Claypool as your 2 pillars. But that's also kind of why the undertone point I'm making about Calvin Austin I want people to remember. But and even then, they could double dip into the pool in the draft next year. Who knows? But
I think Calvin Austin could be a tremendous asset to the Steelers. I don't ever see him being a viable fantasy player. I think
neither do I.
I see him more of a Quez Watkins, Jalen Guyton. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The chance that I'm alluding to is less than 5%. Realistically, like I said before, losing Ray McLeod, it's nice that we have Calvin Austin to come in and do that.
Exactly. Ray McLeod was very valuable to the Steelers, but he's at the bottom of a deep dynasty roster.
Absolutely for sure. Yeah. It's just the case that tack him on the end of your bench. Don't let it be one of those things where you go too hyper insane about it, because that would be malpractice on my part. But that sliver of hope is the reason why he needs to be on your bench.
All right. Least. You got your kazoo ready, right? We're going to finish these games. All right. Just for the fun of it, right? Because there's a lot of fun content in here.
I got to test my knowledge anyway. I mean, this is still good.
All right. I have been an RB2 in each of my first 2 seasons. I've played in 13 games in each of my first 2 seasons. I've had over 100 carries and 50 targets in each of my first 2 seasons. I've never had 1,000-yard combined. I've never had 1,000 combined yardage season. Even though I've been an RB2 in each of my first 2 seasons. Come on, man. This is a short list.
I know, but
I am currently RB3 in Dynasty on Fantasy Pros.
I guess
this is a 2-player list. This is a 1-player list.
So
this is a 1-player list, Herms.
We're talking DeAndre Swift. That's the thing.
When did you get it? When did you get it? You didn't blow your kazoo.
I know, but it's just and we did partially have that conversation earlier, and it for some reason it just didn't ring in my head, because I was
doesn't it freak you out that he's never had 1,000-yard season?
It does to some degree, but
even though he's been an RB2 twice.
Yeah, and it's in the unique circumstances is kind of that, and also we did talk about it earlier. So for some reason, the fact that it wasn't fresh in my brain was weird. I have no idea how I didn't immediately get that, but I will give him somewhat of a pass for the first season, because that 3-headed monster that he immediately walked into was so weird and so annoying that like it's fine, whatever. This past year, with the Detroit offense being just like a tale of two entities mixed with I'm missing a bunch of games at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like, because the circumstances that held him back in year one are obviously gone away because that staff got completely ousted. And then in this year,
that they just kept insisting that Jamal Williams is as good as him and giving him the same number of touches, even though he outproduced him on those touches every freaking week, just drove me nuts.
And the thing about that I routinely have been bringing up lately when discussing Swift specifically, and even just like the Lions offense, because Amon-Ra St. Brown's always topical. So we talk about the Lions offense a lot, at least as it pertains to the running back room. The influence of Anthony Lynn was very evident. That is a hallmark of an Anthony Lynn offense. But now that he's Kyle Shanahan's problem out in San Francisco.
Did he leave?
Yeah, so he's the assistant head coach,
God.
and he's the assistant.
I'll tell you what,
Anthony
Lynn he's low key freaking horrible for fantasy. I mean, he just does not like to focus on a player.
It's fun if you're looking for affordable value at certain things, but if you're looking for elite assets, you're not going to find it in the Lynn offense. And that is frustrating. Yes,
I was so happy he left the Chargers because God, Mike Williams is elite. He's an elite athlete.
Absolutely.
Use him
100%, man. And like
as soon as he left, I was all over Mike Williams.
Oh yeah, dude, totally. So the thing about Swift and that being so bizarre is like, because like the year one, like again, like that regime with like the Patricia like lameness, like thank God we never have to deal with that again. This past year, the Anthony Lynn lameness, thank God we never have to deal with that again.
God,
so
Patricia,
like, what a nightmare. So like the good news is that like the whole opportunity for the entire team is just shattered wide open, but like. We don't really know what the Dan Campbell offense, quote unquote, necessarily is, but we did get glimpses of that when Lynn was kind of
caps. We know that.
What that and they wipe their own asses. We have those two things,
right?
But like so, like as Lynn kind of got phased out, and I can't remember the name of this person right now, but Campbell gave him more responsibilities, and this person whose name I can't remember is now the offensive coordinator. Okay. So what we saw,
I'm not able to fill in that blank. I'm sorry.
So, hey, listeners, viewers, use the Google machine or whatever search engine.
Yeah, keep talking. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So, like, that is probably greater evidence of the type of offense that we will see moving forward. I would feel a little bit better about Swift's opportunity, and frankly, Amon-Ra St. Brown's opportunity, but this is about Swift as we move, because
Ben Johnson is the man's name.
There you go. So like, if I have that wrong, people fact check me at me on Twitter at Herms NFL, whatever. Like, I have to give Swift somewhat of a mulligan because the health concerns are real, but at least in terms of the other factors that made it frustrating, that's beyond his control. Like that's just how that is. Like he's given a responsibility and he's asked to do certain tasks. That is what that is. And and that's one of the really frustrating things about like, and don't get me wrong, like data and analytics are things that I'm very fascinated by. Like I use them in my brain in the mixing bowl of things that I eventually spew out in terms of my opinions. But like people who solely rely on all of that stuff, like when, looking at certain, like it's something referred to as selection bias, where like looking only like at the pool of previous data, you are unable to account for future outcomes. And those certain changes in personnel, whether on a coaching level or a player personnel level, like if your formulated opinion cannot account for those changes, then you're going to get yourself stuck in a retroactive echo chamber of weirdness. So I don't know if that even made any sense, but my point is like the concerns have to be
not
big.
Gonna lie.
Okay, well, so I say weird shit, and it is what it is. But like,
no, that's great, man. Yeah. You lost me. Hopefully, you didn't lose anybody else.
Hopefully, but like, so just like all in all, what I'm saying is like, it's important to look to the past for certain points that you want to look for and like see if a player can reach certain benchmarks, but to consider the circumstances that may have created those less than ideal totals that you're looking at. Like if you don't factor those out and understand there's room for objective optimism in the future now that those things that drag this player down have evaporated, you will have a greater chance of being able to hit on breakouts. But and that's why I feel very confident in DeAndre Swift. I just do. Like I'm willing to wait the frustrating nature of those first 2 years, just being like, and you know, like we just got finished talking about, well, no rational coaching, and like there's no such thing, but like some of those instances.
Can I boil it down for you?
Sure.
Do you mind?
Mm-hmm.
Love me some DeAndre Swift. Best days are ahead.
They are. They just are.
Extremely talented player that hopefully is going to get better usage. All we can do is cross our fingers, but extremely talented player. I would say one of the top 10 most talented running backs in the NFL and younger than most of the guys ahead of him.
And those who forget, I invite you to, if you don't even want to watch, some, highlights of his days in the NFL, go back and watch this man at Georgia and tell me this is not a stud.
He was just such a monster.
Like he's still very much that player. Yeah. He is still very much that player.
And if I get the right 13 games out of him every year, I'm happy because it's a running back, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we had one more game, and you are you good? Are you good to stay with me? All right, cool. We're gonna run through the DTC trade game, and I actually DM'd Izzy Alcafas of Dynasty Trade Calculator. I'm kind of a small fry, so I haven't gotten a response yet, but I did ask him if it was okay to use Dynasty Trade Calculator values on this podcast. So it's all going to be positive. We're using Dynasty Trade Calculator as our basis because on this podcast we talk about it a lot, and we all use it for our teams.
I have a subscription. Yeah, it's
right on.
It's a good service.
Yeah, it is. I'm not saying it's the be all end all. I don't agree with all of their values, but it's a great basis. It really is. Like they nail a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Of the trade calculators on the internet, like I like theirs and I like DLF. Like they're both really, really awesome.
Agreed. All right. So while DLF, I think they're the ones that I think they overvalue rookies a little much for me. But anyway.
Although I will say, if you're looking for any sort of fantasy tool, I definitely recommend Fantasy Pros. I'm a company man. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I will say Fantasy Pros is kind of my default on a lot of things.
Big fan. Hey. It's a good site.
All right. So you're going to play this game against me.
Ooh. Yes.
Since Chad's gone, you're going to get it right or you're going to get it wrong. If you get it wrong, I get a point.
Sounds good.
All right. So would you rather have Devontae Smith and Christian Kirk or Deontay Johnson and CJ Uzoma? And by how much?
Oh,
actually, I'm not going to say by how much since it's just me against you.
Okay.
I want you to give me by how much, but it's not going to count.
I remember them really, really liking Deontay Johnson, as they should, as everybody should. But I think I'm going to go with Deontay and Uzoma just because I think the weight that Deontay carries is so high. But I think the margin is maybe like within 4 to 6.
All right. You got both wrong.
Oh, God.
And I'll tell you, if you get going forward, if you get either of them right, you get a point. So that's a point for me. So here's how it breaks down. Devontae Smith, 17.9. Christian Kirk, 9.9 for a total of 27.8.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson, 25.4. CJ Uzoma.
Don't know. No, I never figured it out.
1.8 for a total of 27.3. Devontae Smith side by 5.5. It's a really close trade.
I think I think my own bias got into my head. I really do.
So the whole point of this game, and this is what I want to know, is who would you actually take in that trade?
I mean, I would rather have the Kirk and Devontae Smith side of it. Reason being, AJ Brown coming in only helps, at least in the context of the Philadelphia offense.
Right.
Like, it's not like Devontae Smith was some like third round. Yeah, like, well, not only that, but it's also not like he was some like third round draft capital guy that, you know, like overachieved and was like, we're nervous if the team ever brings in another guy, then everything goes to crap. Like, first round pick, won the Heisman, had a very under the radar, extremely effective rookie year. Like,
he set rookie records for the Eagles. By the way.
So it's like, dude's good, you know? And then also, like, Kirk, like, it's a murky situation. I really don't know how they're going to deploy all of those pieces in the Peterson offense, especially because a lot of the receivers that they have are kind of cast into a similar archetypal bucket. Going to be interesting to see how they figure that out. But,
good point.
You know, like,
especially they lost Chark. Chark was the one guy that could stretch the field, right?
Exactly. So it's like, you know, and I really hate to do the disingenuous follow the money thing because it's not always something that leads to, you know, positive results from a just figuring out the clue standpoint.
Sure.
But when you give a guy that much, they're
going to try to make him a thing. Absolutely. They're going to, like, to no end, they're going to try to make him a thing.
Yeah, even if it's violently inefficient, they gambled so much financially on it.
They can't just say, oops, we fucked up. Oops, there's the first episode.
Hey, there you go. Hey.
But they can't just say that week 5.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, like, from that standpoint, so, like, just, like, at least for the first year and a half, Kirk is going to be forced into opportunity. And then Devontae Smith just being as good as he is. And then, like, I will take that. The other major part of it being, as much as I love Deontay Johnson, we don't know where he's playing after this year.
Yeah.
So,
well,
and he'll be great no matter where he goes. But, like, it's still something.
In a way, though, that's such a, like, that could, it's so polarizing, right? That could
it's either a boon for him or it's a detriment.
Right.
It's in the eye of the beholder at that point.
If he goes to the Jets, bleh.
Yeah.
You know, they already have there. He's blocked. Well, all right. Let's be realistic. If he goes to the Chargers to replace Keenan Allen, right? Wheels
that
up,
would
baby.
Be incredible.
Wheels up, baby.
Oh my god, dude! I mean, obviously, sad
if he goes
a little
to the
bit personally,
Cardinals,
but like,
if he goes to the Cardinals to replace D-Hop, wheels up, baby.
Dude, like, these are good opportunities. So it's like, yeah, like, it's in the eye of the beholder.
If DK gets traded and Lockett is old and he goes to Seattle and they draft the 4th quarterback next year, bleh. Not loving that.
Yeah. So it's like,
you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot up and down there.
Yeah. You have a lot more security with the recent first round capital, extremely talented receiver, and then the guy that just got so much money that they're going to force it into existence. They're going to put all of their will to put it into existence. Yeah. Like, I will take that level of security from an asset standpoint, even if it's not as high. There's still a stability with both that it's comfortable at least.
So where are you going? Which side of this trade are you going from a dynasty standpoint?
Oh, I mean, well, like I said, like, I would rather go with the Devontae Smith, Christian Kirk thing.
Yeah. I would too, because you have 2 shots, right? Mm-hmm. I think I see the Devontae Smith, Deontay Johnson talent as pretty similar. You know, Devontae Smith is a hell of a 1B. Is how I see him. right?
Exactly.
He's kind of like I just see him as a less physical Reggie Wayne, hoping he puts on weight, muscle weight, and becomes Reggie Wayne kind of player. He's got the skill set to be that kind of player. And Christian Kirk, I see a large chance of success for him. Like you said, they're gonna Doug Peterson is no fool. If he gave that money, he's gonna feature that player. It's gonna happen, right?
Absolutely.
So I believe the fantasy points will be there for Kirk, and you pair him with a hopefully ascending quarterback that was the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I personally am giving him a mulligan on season 1 because of that stupid ass Urban Meyer crap.
100. Frankly, year 1 to Trevor.
I'm giving him a mulligan.
Yeah, it doesn't exist in my brain.
He needs to come out. He needs to come out this year and show his talent. Right? He needs to come out this year and put up, close to 4,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, limit the interceptions. If that happens, then he's an ascending player.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you something. Would you trade Trevor Lawrence at a second for Russ Wilson right now?
If I am really looking to go for the chip, probably.
What about on a rebuild?
Just keep Trevor Lawrence then. Yeah, no, screw that. Yeah.
Okay. So no panic on Trevor.
Year 1 didn't happen.
Okay.
Not in this brain. Not in this brain. It didn't.
Right on. I'm with you. I'm giving him the mulligan, but I'm still a little worried. He did look freaking worse than Zach Wilson. You know what I mean?
He did, but at the same time, we're talking about.
He looked good.
He did, yeah.
He did. He actually looked good from an NFL standpoint, not
that is
from
true.
A fantasy standpoint, which is what I'm looking for right now.
Absolutely. But it's just such a weird team last year to the we're look, we're talking about a team that made me interested enough in writing an article about Jamal Agnew. You know what I mean? That's the type of offense we're talking about.
Right.
The Urban Meyer experience is wiped from my fantasy memory. Anything that took place last year is the only thing that even remotely carries over. Just as a small footnote in the Jaguars conversation is the possibility that Dan Arnold can carry over and have some interesting value. Just because, who knows if his acquisition was more of a Meyer thing or a bulky thing. But Doug Peterson coming in with propensity for a 12 personnel type system. I know they brought in Evan Ingram as well, but that's the only thing that carries over from last year in my brain is something interesting.
I will say though, I'll push back. Doug Peterson went 12 personnel because he had Ertz and Goddard.
That is true. That is true.
Right? He didn't do that with the Colts.
Yeah.
Colts? No, I'm thinking of Reich.
Chiefs.
I'm thinking of Colts. I'm thinking of Reich. But yeah, he didn't do that with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Right? Because he didn't have that personnel. I do think Doug Peterson he's a West Coast guy.
Yeah.
Right? And the basic element of West Coast is play to your personnel. And that's what Bill Walsh always did, was play to your personnel. Who are your best players?
That's true. And even that, theoretically, he made, still find ways to cycle in and out and, do whatever. But but even then, it's such a small thing that
he's gonna pass. He's gonna pass.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I promise you.
And that's also why I feel so good about Travis Etienne, especially because, the familiarity and link he already has with Trevor Lawrence from college. And then also, I dove, not deep on this because this is very easily accessible information, but just, in terms of pace of play for the offense in Peterson's entire tenure in Philadelphia, routinely top 10. They're going to run astronomically more plays than they did last year. So even from a volume standpoint, across the board for all players, it is going to be night and day. I'm very thrilled.
Amazing point. That's great. I hadn't thought about that. Doug Peterson loves to go fast.
Yeah,
trust me. And it's a thing. So what happens is he uses the hurry up when they're struggling
Mhm.
because I mean, and rightfully so, it gets an offense going a lot of times.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a Doug Peterson thing. It's not like he didn't invent it, but he really believes in that. And I've seen it so many times in Eagles games where like we're struggling and boom, here comes the hurry up in the second quarter. Love it. Right. Yeah.
Because like I think they were
it's kind of a Shanahan thing too.
Yeah. Like that difference from I think it was either 28th or 29th in like just plays run offensively last year to what it's going to be now.
Right.
And we see, and the greatest thing that you can have for a fantasy asset is a guy on a team that runs a bunch of plays, because more plays is more opportunity, which is more production in theory, but more opportunity definitively, which is everything. It's everything. That's what we all want.
He had to have a player like Kirk to make a player like LaVisca even viable, by the way.
That is true. Yeah.
So like LaVisca cannot be like your first option. Absolutely not.
Not at all. No.
You have to have a player like Kirk that can at least stretch the field and get open deep. Anyway, he also signed Marvin Jones, who is if he can still do it, he could last year. If he can still do it, that guy can run a 9 route.
Absolutely.
He absolutely knows how to step on a D-back's toes and get past them.
I was huge on him as a value pick last year. I mean, obviously it didn't.
Yeah, me too.
It didn't work out to the scale that we thought it would for obvious reasons that we've already been over. But like, he's still there, man. He's still there.
It worked early, and I've been huge on him for a number of years. That guy, you probably get him for a 4th. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
He's an NFL wide receiver that, like I said, he knows how to get open deep. He tracks the ball. He's your quintessential deep weapon, right? Hopefully, he can still do it at his age.
He's been doing it for long enough. Hey,
right. He's Deshaun without quite the speed or attitude.
Cut from the same cloth, different part of the blanket, but same cloth.
All right, so I have 2 more that are going to spin your head.
All
right. Here's one for you: Freiermuth and Goddard for Knox and Hawk. So this is thrown back to things we've talked about already.
Yeah.
I mean, good luck on this one, but go for it. Freiermuth and Goddard. Think about how nice that team is, but then think about Knox and Hawk, right? And how Anyway,
I'm betting that the Hawk and Knox side it's not the one I would take, but I think in the calculator that's probably the winner.
All right, so you get a point. That's a point for you. So that is higher. Take a guess at by how much.
That margin's got to be pretty slim. I mean, like within 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. It's 2.2. Right?
Yeah. So like it's, and I get it. It's not what I would choose to do. I would take the Muth Goddard side.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, but I get it, All
right, so real quick, just gotta have to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I just cracked Vizzy. I've been cracking all night, obviously, but I just cracked Vizzy pineapple mango. It is the best one.
Oh, hey,
pretty damn good.
Have you had Topo Chico?
Oh, love me some Topo Chico.
Dude.
The strawberry guava is my jam.
Dude, those flavors are awesome, man.
If they just made strawberry guava 12 packs, I would buy that all day.
Oh, dude. It's
the mango, I'm not a fan.
I had that for the first time recently. I didn't like it as much, but yeah, strawberry guava, dude, like that. Whew, man, that's
right.
That's a party in your mouth. I will tell you what. Big fan.
So we've been a big Topo Chico fan in this house before they made hard seltzer. They made flat seltzer,
Just like a sparkling water type deal.
Yeah. And we got it at the Mexi Mart up the street.
Yeah.
Los Amigos. I'm telling you, that is the best thing to mix with vodka in the world.
It's good, man. It's so good.
It's so good.
Shout out. And like, hey, if you want to give us a sponsorship, Topo Chico, if you're listening, please hit us up. Either one of us.
Please. I mean, I've been begging Truly for months, but anyway. So, all right. So you're right. You got it right, but you would take the Freiermuth Goddard side.
And like, I would just reference our big discussion we had earlier. You know what I mean? Just like if I'm looking for types of tight ends,
yeah,
I would rather go with Muth and Goddard for what they have going for them than the other side. But
I'm with you, but it could go either way.
Yeah, in a vacuum, there's a reason it's close. So like, I feel like
the highest upside guy is Hawk, right?
Objectively, the person with the highest possible ceiling, I think, is probably Pat Freiermuth, but the likelihood that happens is smaller than the likelihood of TJ Hawkinson reaching his comparable ceiling. So like,
gotcha.
In the aggregate, yeah, Hawk.
I think Hawk actually has a higher ceiling and a higher likelihood of reaching the ceiling. So that's why I like that side a little. That's the only reason I like that side. And
for sure.
Knox I like. I actually kind of have Knox and Freiermuth pretty similar. As far as what expected production.
I feel that.
Freiermuth definitely has higher value because he produced in first year where Knox produced in third year. So perception is definitely on Freiermuth's side. But from my expected production, I have them very, very, very similar. It's actually a neck and neck for me.
I get that.
As far as DTC goes, it's 15.5 Freiermuth, 16.6 Goddard, which is muted. It's muted. It's muted by the offense, right?
Yeah.
If the Eagles do what every Eagles fan expects them to do and trade up and get CJ Stroud and who's the Alabama quarterback?
Bryce Young.
Bijan's the running back. So if they do what like one of those two guys, then Goddard becomes, a 28-point player or a 26-point player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a big if. You know what I mean? Only
Absolutely.
Eagles fans like are banking on that. Everybody else is probably way more objective. Eagles have the ammo to do it, but who knows if it really happens. Total of 32.1, where on the other side you have Knox at 7.3, which I think is so low. God, it kills me.
It's and even as someone who's nervous about the dynasty outlook for Knox, that's low.
That's tight end premium setting in DTC.
Oh well, then that's I mean, it shouldn't be like.
Are you getting him for a 20?
High, but like,
are you getting him for a 2023 third?
Not in tight end premium. No.
I mean, I'm sorry, not third, second. Are you getting him a 2023 second in tight end premium?
Honestly,
no, they're laughing at you. No,
because
why would they take that?
There's a very small segment of managers that would consider that to the point. Like it's not even it's not something that you should even have enter.
Yeah, it's like the idiots in your league will take that, right? So you can't. That's not a viable strategy.
Yeah,
because you have to consider that. Like you have to assume that nobody's an idiot.
Assuming competency,
and if it happens for you, great. But,
assuming competency in a tight end premium scoring format, there are enough people that are rosy about the fact that in that offense, if Josh Allen continues to look for him in the red zone, then like why the hell would I give that up?
Why would I give a second? Well, like why would I take a second for him? No. He has a potential to be a tight end 1. No. Right? All right. So Hawk is a 27.
And and we had that we had the Hawk discussion.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. And we haven't really come to a consensus that he has like the likely potential to be an elite tight end. So at 27, he has to be.
Yeah,
right?
I cannot get there with that. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the trade calculator per se, because like this is how he's viewed. It is.
If I have Hawk, I'm not giving him up for just a first. Why would I do that?
Yeah, it would be,
there's a very low likelihood that I can replace his production with one pick, where every pick is a dart throw, so you have to get extra picks. So like I gave up 103 and 210. I would kind of want more than that.
Yeah. And like, especially like, because like I kind of like briefly mentioned it earlier in the show, but like I can only think of like 2 tight ends coming out of college within the next couple draft classes that can theoretically be close. Right. And then like one guy in like Eric Gilbert, if he gets his head on straight and figures some stuff out, because from a talent standpoint, he has all of that in the world. But I mean, like his saga of like leaving LSU, kind of dropping off the face of the earth, people not knowing where he is, popping up at Georgia, and then not really doing anything. Like he was once regarded as an insanely ridiculous tight end recruit coming out of high school. So it's just like him, like Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame, and then Brock Bowers. Like those are like the 3 chances. Yeah. Well, 2 chances you have.
Mayer Bowers.
Yeah. So basically the 2, like those are the 2.
Mayer is going to be he's going to be a top 5.
Yeah. So it's like, and that's kind of the point that I think we're both getting at, is just like, unless you are just automatically assuming that pick that I am getting is going to be this guy or this guy, and you're just cementing what you're doing with that asset right now, it doesn't make any sense. And even then, cementing what you're doing with that asset now doesn't make any sense anyway, because that's ludicrous. So it's like, why would you do that?
And
like,
as volatile as tight end is, good luck replacing him with one pick is kind of my entire point.
Exactly. Like, to do that, you have to do an unreasonable, unhealthy amount of preparation. Like that is,
and you're still going to be wrong. You know what I mean? Like there's still a great chance that you're going to be wrong, because all the guys that do, like, Kuiper get so many things wrong. Yeah, we can't.
Yeah. From a procedural standpoint, it's ludicrous, and then even from the outcome standpoint, it's no guarantee. We're talking about college athletes right now.
You just all right. So one of the things that I want to do for this show is a historical hit rate game.
Yeah.
Just to make people understand like how even your first round pick, how far like of a chance that you have of that actually hitting as an elite player. It's not what you think,
Yeah.
So you need to get 3 picks for a player like that,
especially in a tight end premium. Like, I mean, you have to be very mindful of that type of asset for sure.
Right.
Like, yeah, man.
Not only in a tight end, like especially like when you get a full point, extra in a tight end premium, especially in those leagues, you have to not just think like, who's my tight end. Right, you have to think, who are my 4 tight ends, because those guys are going to outscore wide receivers in your flex. And if those guys go down, you absolutely have to have a real player to substitute them with. You can't just say, I have Eric Ebron or Donald Parham as my backup. You have to have real players. You have to have Goddard, or you have to have, like, Uzomah doesn't count. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you have to be looking at a situation where it's like, if I have one of these top guys, thank God Hunter Henry's lingering behind him. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. Like, yeah,
Right.
like you can't really. Yeah, because like in leagues that I play in that aren't tight end premium, like
Hunter
yeah,
Henry doesn't even inspire confidence in me, to be honest.
oh, for sure. But even then,
Even
just
as
like,
backup, like in those leagues, I want more.
and I don't
You
blame
know?
you, but just like, but even then, still just like illustrating the point of like
Yeah.
guys you feel good about in non-tight end premium that if they're on your bench, you're just like, oh well, maybe I don't know, but like like the logic is so different across those formats, and that's why it pays. Like, and so often this happens where like I will like join a league and then like like managers that drop off after 1 year because just like, oh, it kind of sucked, and then you're left with this orphan that you're really having a hard time finding a new manager for, is because it's like that person didn't understand the format.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's so vital
Absolutely.
that people remember that stuff. Like,
Absolutely.
you have to tailor your strategy around this. Like, what? Because like the goal of fantasy football generally in like a macro bird's eye view sense is the same thing, but like your strategy has to be tailored to what is being rewarded. And those types of people who don't like, if you don't tailor your drafting strategy and roster construction to what is rewarded, then you're just going to hate yourself if something ever happens. And that's when we see so many people rage quit leagues. And it's a shame, but it's true.
Well, shout out to Dynasty Warzone, because if you join one of those Patreon leagues, it doesn't really happen. To be honest, like what I'm trying to say is you have to be kind of select. Like, don't join, random ESPN leagues, random sleeper leagues. Join a Patreon. Sure. Join a Patreon. Find a group of like-minded people. Like, I got to be honest. Like, if we have an orphan, it's snapped up within 5 minutes on the chat. Yeah. So I've kind of like focused. I started out and I had a couple of like weird like dynasty teams with a bunch of people I didn't know, and it was really unstable. And I'm not going to pay money for those leagues. So yeah, just saying like find a group of people. I'm not saying it has to be Dynasty Warzone, but low key, I'm saying we are the best out there.
Yeah, just be selective about that, because if you want a league to thrive, you have to make sure that it's people.
If I'm making a trade for a 2024 or 2025 picks, the first question I ask myself is this league going to exist at that point? Because if not, I just threw my first 2 or 3 years of entry fees away.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's a great point about Dynasty.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I've got a one more trade that is going to make your head spin.
All right.
I really wish Chad was here for this one, because we had a huge debate about 2 of these players last week. But anyway, would you rather have, or would DTC rather have, Kenny Pickett and one Mitchell Troubadour Trubisky, or Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis? That's a fucking tough one. And there's F-bomb number 2.
Hey,
I'm telling you, this is a tough one.
I'm impressed I haven't dropped one. Like, hey, and anybody, watching or listening to this or whatever, like if you ever end up checking out my podcast, you too will be astounded by the fact that I haven't yet. I'm assuming that the calculator is probably going to prefer the Tennessee side, but even then, that's a kind of a bold assumption on my part, because, I don't know if that's readjusted for the updated information of the Malik Willis draft.
You bastard! This was my first chance to get a win, and you took it.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you have to put yourself in the brain of the calculator, and whether or not you agree with the calculator, because that's this is all an imperfect thing, but I had a feeling that. Well, especially just because the depressed value of Trubisky being what it is, like I think that was the component of this to me that I was just like, he is still probably so low that even with Tannehill's struggle from last year, he keeps it afloat high enough that like, yeah, I don't know. That's how I kind of arrived at that conclusion in my head.
Right on. So we have Pickett at 18.7 as the highest player in the trade.
Yeah.
Trubes at 5.6, which is
that's
really low.
That's wild.
Really low. And then you have Tannehill at 15, which I think is probably about right. And then Malik Willis at 11.3.
See, there's the, you know, like I can tell the draft capital is baked in there, but
Right.
it's still high. And yeah, there we go. Sam, the old noodle didn't fail me on that one. All right, there we go.
For Pickett, for Pickett to be only 7 points higher than Malik Willis, I just don't agree. Like, I think Malik Willis should be more like Trubisky range. Because let me ask you this. Is there a higher chance that Malik Willis becomes a starting, like a perennial starting NFL quarterback than Mitch Trubisky? Is that true or incorrect?
I mean, and I've kind of said this all along in the like post NFL draft process, is like, for as much as people are like, oh, well, the situation Willis finds himself in is interesting. Oh, the situation Desmond Ridder finds himself is interesting. It's like all of that can be true, but the only quarterback that was drafted in this entire year that has any prayer of starting 3 seasons, let alone
that's
like a long time,
right?
He's
that's
Kenny
the
Pickett.
question.
He's the only one. He is the only one.
Exactly.
Like, so, like, yeah, like and don't get me wrong, like the skill set that Willis presents is very intriguing. I understand. And, you know, same thing with Ridder, I guess. I never figured out how I felt about him.
How many quarterbacks with Malik Willis's skill set have not made it in the NFL? There's a lot.
Exactly. So it's just like, there's one quarterback that's going, and that's why, you know, and I got clowned for it a lot, you know, like my willingness to, and like I drafted a lot of Kenny Pickett. I did. And it was just like, well,
yeah, me too.
Blah, blah. And it's just like, the reason I'm doing it is because, and like some of, like maybe like 108, 109 stuff. They're like, what are you doing, man? Like, Herms, come on. I'm just like, he's the only one. He's the only one.
Someone gave you shit about that?
There are people that have.
I'm sorry. I have a few in me, but that's not a good take.
Yeah.
Between 107 and 110, I probably took 8 Kenny Willis's. I mean,
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett's.
Yeah. So it's just like,
we're getting late. We're 2.5 hours in.
No, for sure. But it's just like, and like I understand. It's just like,
no, seriously, I took so much Kenny Pickett in that range, man.
Like some of those receivers are interesting. I get it. Was James Cook available some of those times? Sure. But in super flex leagues, there is one guy that I know will do something for me. So like, please give me that.
I took 0 Desmond Ridder where he was going. I took 0 Matt Corral where he was going. And I got like 2 Malik Willis's in the late second. I didn't get him like early to mid or whatever. He fell to late second, and like the Mechie and McBrides that I like were gone. And like it was like Brian Robinson or Zamir White, or, you know, like both Pierces were gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, F it, I'll take Malik Willis at this point. Highest upside, late second round. Yeah. But I'm not taking him. I wasn't taking him early to mid at all. I didn't get 1 at that point.
And I kept seeing people do that, and I understand just the tantalizing nature of the skill set. I can see how someone arrives at that conclusion mentally, but I just cannot get there.
No,
it's just, it never made sense. It just
what is more likely is that they draft over him.
Wouldn't shock me.
You know, and it's more likely to me for Corral, Ridder, and Malik Willis that they get drafted over, all 3 of them. So like there's been this debate, like who has the best chance of starting first out of all of these picks. Who cares? I don't give a shit, because I don't really have any confidence in any of them to like take over a team to a point that they're not going to draft over them when they spend a 3rd round pick on them. The only one I give it any shits about is Pickett. And that's like, he's like Mac Jones to me last year. Was taking him all day long in the late first. Same with Pickett.
Yeah, and when you're taking chances on quarterbacks drafted in that range, like the only examples that I can even think of from recent history anyway, like there are plenty more historically, I get, but like you are looking at telling yourself a Malik Willis, a Desmond Ridder, or a Matt Corral could be Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott.
Right.
That's the thing you have to sell yourself on.
The biggest outliers that I could ever remember.
Exactly. And only one of them I feel is within the ballpark of doing so, and I'm not confident. So it's just there was only one quarterback worth taking in any of these rookie drafts that happened this year.
I mean, there's the chance
at a certain point, anyway. Obviously.
So I mean, honestly, like if you want to go with the narrative part of this, then yeah, okay, it's pretty similar, like the same way that both of those quarterbacks fell, that these quarterbacks fell. But I mean, all right, let's talk about Russell Wilson for a second, right? He went in the 3rd round. The Eagles were hot after Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, but they slept on him. They could have taken him in the 2nd, and they didn't. And Seattle traded up and took him. And the Eagles were like, all right, well, we'll take Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Well, all right, well, maybe that's Matt Corral, right? So who's Nick Foles in the NFL? Nick Foles is an extremely streaky player that can have great games in the right circumstances, in the right system, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and like you want those players on your roster, but the value that they present's not huge.
I mean, he's a Super Bowl MVP, right?
Absolutely. Philly special, baby.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 10-inch penis. Everyone in the locker room knows that.
Yeah, big dick Nick, man. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. But is he better than Russell Wilson? Hell no.
Absolutely not.
Hell no. Every Eagles fan cursed every minute of that draft until we won that Super Bowl. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, all right. So say you're an Eagles fan and you can go back and draft Russell Wilson or Nick Foles, knowing what you know now, right? You're definitely getting Super Bowl win with Foles. Did Russell Wilson win a Super Bowl? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did win one of those.
Yes. It would have been 2 if they had handed it to Marshawn. But
that's the one I can't forget.
Yeah. But yeah, man, like
what's the question? Like it's got to be Russell. It's got to be Russell because he's got the Super Bowl win, right? So you're going to win a Super Bowl either way.
It's more fun if like I liked the journey because okay, right, well if I'm an Eagles fan, then I don't know what my answer is. That would be tough, but
it's tough, man.
From a third party perspective, like the Foles thing was cool.
Yeah,
so, like
so freaking cool, man.
It was cool, man. Like it was fun to see that. You know,
and then you found out, in the end that we wouldn't have won that Super Bowl with Wentz because he's gutless. He's absolutely he's a tin man. He's got no heart.
I got
he's
a lot
gutless wonder.
Yeah,
like he can't win anything.
I got a lot of buddies around here that are, Washington Commanders fans, and
right.
I feel, but and I think we discussed this last time we spoke. It's just one of those things.
Can we still call them what WTF, please?
I mean, the football team name was a very good name.
But, I just want to call them what the.
Oh yeah, no, I mean we may not call them that, but we certainly. I hear that phrase a lot. Because like between like my boss, a few of the people in my home league, it's just and also like I grew up rooting for them as my NFC team of choice because there was no rooting conflict between them and the Steelers. I abandoned that franchise a long time ago, and I never looked back. I don't care.
Most people who live in DC have done the same thing. So I worked in DC for quite a while, and I worked with a lot of people of color that grew up in DC, and I mean, I think one of them, out of all of them, one of them was a whatever you want to call him, WTF fan, Redskins fan, growing up. The rest of them were like, no, they're racist. No, I'm not going to root for a racist team. So, I mean, I'm saying it right now on this podcast right now. They are a racist organization and have not changed. And there's nothing I can do to like root for them.
Yeah. Like my whole thing, at least at a certain point or whatever, because I mean, I had to evolve in my ethical understanding to reach that point.
Yeah.
But like if Dan Snyder is ousted, I will be open to rooting for the franchise again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like at least they're fantasy players. At this point, I have a hard time rooting for their fantasy players.
Not only from that standpoint, but also just like it's where talent has gone to die routinely. There have been so many players that, you know, like
although I do believe in Ron Rivera. I do.
He is a remarkable human being.
He's an intense human being.
Absolutely.
He really is, and like he's the type of person that can will a team to win. He's also extremely intelligent and
for sure. It's hard not to love that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But
I briefly bought back in to a small to the degree that I turned the ESPN notifications back on. I'll say that, because when he got hired, because I was excited about that at least. But then I was reminded of everything about this still sucks otherwise. But like. I want some sort of fortune reversal to happen for them, mostly for his sake. You know, I want Dan Snyder to be ousted. I want things to turn around because I want Ron Rivera to succeed because he's such a good dude.
Yeah, I agree. But beat cancer. You know, I honestly, though, in my heart, believe that Dan Snyder will die owning this team, and nothing is going to change during that span.
I mean, what that congressional investigation found on him, it may end up being very difficult for him to hold on to it because
I mean, is that still up in the air? I thought it was settled and they skated.
I haven't heard much about it recently. You could be right.
I kind of just assumed. I don't really know.
All I know is that like for as much as like the other messy things about that team that should have gotten. You know, him removed.
He's a scumbag, and it leads to scumbag organization.
Yeah, like all of those things aside, that should have been reasons to oust him. But you know, the old boys club being what it is, I begrudgingly and regretfully understand why he's still. But what the financial crimes nature of essentially stealing that much revenue from your other, you know, team and franchise owners, like
right.
I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to survive that.
Yeah, that's something they won't stand for.
Because it's just like sexual harassment, whatever. But all these other things, but when you talk about my money, and that's
right.
Because if you're a billionaire,
you say bad things about minorities, we can get over it.
But
but if it's my money, it's
the minute you screw over a billionaire capitalist over money,
you
know, that's when things start to get, hey, you know.
Yeah, good call.
So
good call.
You know. There's one thing that pisses off somebody like Jerry Jones more than anything else. You know, I mean,
talk about the other most scumbaggiest organization in sports.
And one of the frustrating things about just being a fan of sports as a whole is that we all have passively signed some sort of cognitive contract to just ignore the problematic nature of the sport that we choose to watch.
Yes.
It's frankly, for the most part, it's almost every franchise.
For the most part,
to some degree or another. I'm not saying they're all aggressively bad, but to some small degree, all the way up to the scale of just complete nightmare, it can be.
I like to believe that the Eagles do more good than bad.
Yeah.
But it's hard to ignore some of the bad.
Yeah.
The Eagles have screwed people over.
Yeah. It's something we have to accept about being a fan of sports.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're willing to block that part of it out of your and I also think about it we talked about this on an episode of my podcast not too long ago at the intro, because like we tend to address serious things up top and then get into it sometimes. Like even just in terms of like how for years the league withheld information that they had about the long-term effects of player health and concussions and stuff is just like
Right.
to be able to put myself in a position where I am willing to support and give my attention to a sport that actively harmed and withheld support from its athletes is completely abhorrent. But
Yeah.
you
when there's billions of dollars on the line, that's always going to be the answer. I'm not saying it's right. In fact, I'm saying it's wrong.
Exactly. But that's kind of my point. There are certain things you just have to block out if you want to enjoy it.
Exactly. Yeah.
To enjoy the theater of it is you can't break the fourth wall to enjoy the theater.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Great example. I'm going to quote Chris Harris. Well, I'm going to pair a quote. Chris Harris, when like there are all of these, I think he calls it the third situation, where like we don't know what's happening and we can't control what's happening, and we can't control anything in the NFL, but these are the things that the human aspect that we have, we can't control and we can't really even predict. So
exactly,
we can draw lines as human beings if we want, or we cannot. And I won't judge anybody for either circumstance, right? Mm-hmm. If Darius Geis comes back to the NFL and gets a job and it's fantasy relevant, hey, that's awesome. It's going to be for somebody else's team.
Yeah, same, not mine, but
Right. I will not have Darius Geis for free. I will not. I think he's a scumbag of a human being, and he will not be on my team. But if my opponent has Darius Geis against me in a championship game and I lose because of that, so be it. I will not judge anybody, but I draw certain moral lines. Not everybody has to do that.
Yeah, because ultimately, especially from a fantasy perspective, it's just like there's already an added level of distance between yourself and football by tying it into fantasy anyway. So, I get it.
I'll end this part of the discussion by saying this, unless you have more. But
no, I'm good. I could go on forever about this.
Listen, Des Bryant. This is my point. Des Bryant once punched his mother in the face, and this is from a news article that I read. Like, it's a police report. He punched his own mother in the face. There was a really good reason. Like, she was a crackhead and stole money from him, and like it was not a mother-son relationship that you and I have ever had. But maybe some of our listeners have. I don't know. But I won a fantasy championship with him. Is that right or wrong?
I don't know that there's.
To me, outside of killing a person or raping a person, that's one of the worst things you can do in the world is punch your mother in the face.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He didn't grow up with the same mother I did. You know what I mean? Yeah. To me, that just it really exemplifies like, they're people, but we're just trying to beat, our friends, and where does that line come in? And like I said, I knew that about him, but I won a fantasy championship with him because he threw a touchdown to win me a fantasy championship. Yeah. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
It was like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a redraft league, whatever.
Yeah. The point is just like, far be it from any individual to police how you play a game.
Yeah. Right on. I don't know how we got on this subject.
Dude, it's a byproduct of just, it's my fault.
No, I love it. Herms, man, this is why I had you on, because you're a deep thinker, you're a character, you're amazing for fantasy football. Well, love having you here, man.
I appreciate that. I really do.
We're gonna have you on when it's like the full crew, right?
Right,
so
cool.
It's gonna be so. Just to explain what's going on with Chad, he owns a horse ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever seen? You're not a Yellowstone fan by any chance, are you?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Well,
I've never seen it, but I know what it is.
Chad lives that show.
Oh, all right. Oh.
No, seriously, like the particular horses, like they breed in that show, or the same horses, and he works with a lot of people that are producers on that show. And
so he's Kevin Costner. All right, there you go.
Yeah, not Kevin Costner. He's not Kevin Costner's best friend. But anyway, this is his busy season. He's traveling around trying to buy and sell horses.
Gotcha.
And so he's not able, like, normally he's on video with us tonight. Like, for the last few weeks, he hasn't been. And Mike, who's our other co-host, is in the Army. And, like, for a couple months a year, he's got to go and do these war games. And anyway, normally he's stationed at Texas A&M, and he runs the ROTC, and he's like their captain, and like he teaches all the cadets. And so, like, he's got a pretty cushy job, I feel like, you know, most of the year, but you know, he gets sent out once in a while. And he just had a kid, so really tough on him right now.
True that, yeah.
Anyway, man, anything else we want to talk about?
I don't know. It's almost a 3-hour show.
I feel like you know, if we want to solve like the deficit, you know, or like if there's a recession coming, do we want to prevent that?
I have a lot of thoughts and theories about that, but I don't know that Fantasy Pros really wants me to talk about my political views. So
yeah, no, we don't get political at all on this show. Just so you know, so we keep it to football.
There we go.
Herms, man, this was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for like having the enthusiasm and like hitting me up, and like next time you do a game on a Friday, and yeah, we're absolutely having you back on. You're going to be free sometime in July?
I'm
thinking late July.
Probably, yeah.
Right on.
So,
right on.
Nice.
It's like asking if we're still going to be alive at that point.
Yeah.
All right, right on. All right, Herms. So there's going to be no after hours. Just a heads up, because Chad left. Fun. So once I end this, we're done. So normally we have an after hours, and you know, we talk about the show, but we're not going to be able to. So anyway, thank you all. I don't know how to end a Dynasty podcast, because
a Dynasty league technically never ends.
Yeah. So, there you go. It's a good point.
Hey.
We have never found a good sign off for this show. But anyway, before I go, Herms, you want to plug anything once again?
On Twitter at Herms NFL. That's where you can find me. It's where you can find my tweets. Sometimes it's about football. Sometimes it's just the random thoughts that I have throughout my day. I don't know. It is what it is, but there's some pretty fun information that comes out of there. And that's also where you can find links that I post to my written work over at Fantasy Pros. That's where you can find me doing a bunch of articles and stuff. I have a ton of fun stuff coming out as part of, you know, we're putting together some redraft material for people to focus on. It's about that time of year, folks, so get ready. And then my podcast, The Lateral Show, you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, anywhere Anchor publishes it. I don't really know. Those are the three that I'm aware of. I'm sure it's on other platforms. I just don't know. It probably, you know, Anchor does it for me. So if you like hearing me doing stuff like this, but you just want to hear more F-bombs, then that's the place that you can hear me do that. Otherwise, I have some fun stuff in the works, but, you know, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll hear more about it as time goes along. So at Herms NFL, best place you can find me.
All right. Thank you so much, man. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You're one of my favorite people in the Dynasty space. Keep it real, brother. I know that's your bag. Just keep on keeping it, right?
Absolutely.
Keep on trucking, as we used to say in the 70s, because I'm an old man. On that note, we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Oh, it's still live. Okay. Well, thank you for joining into the Dynasty War Games. It was very fun. Yes. Goodbye.